Do you love novels, but don't have time to read thousands of chapters? Imagine listening to your favorite stories anytime, anywhere, while driving, working, or relaxing. Here, you'll find premium audiobooks from Pocket FM, Audible, Webnovel, Wuxia, and more, all in one place. Every novel is a one-time payment, no subscriptions, no monthly fees, lifetime access. The full novel list and prices are in the description below. Once you choose a novel, just DM me on Telegram, WhatsApp, or Discord. After payment via PayPal, Ko-fi, or Patreon, you get permanent access to the audiobook on Telegram. And if the novel is ongoing, all future updates are included. Check the description, pick your story, and start listening today. Before we start the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Enjoy, and let's go.
11, Chapter 11, A Simple Man. The silence that hung over the private courtyard was comforting. However, Renzu broke the calm with a slightly different, more serious tone. Father, mother. Before emotions overwhelm us too much, I have a request. The eyes of Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro turned to him immediately. Renzu did not hesitate. I would like you, for now, to continue pretending you are ill, as if nothing has changed. As he thought, there was no shock on his parents' faces, only an exchange of knowing and understanding glances. Yun Qinghong was the first to speak, his voice gentle but with a tone of genuine curiosity. Oh? And why do you think we should keep this a secret, Zuer? Renzu tilted his head slightly and said calmly. Father, in the years you were incapacitated, many who once showed respect must have harbored dissatisfaction in secret. Perhaps some even thought of seizing power, waiting for the right opportunity. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that some may have sought alliances with other families to secure their chances. Or even that some families might be planning a way to depose our Yun family from being one of the 12 guardian families. If you and mother simply appear recovered overnight, those snakes will hide deeper, change their plans, and wait for the next opportunity. But if we maintain this facade, we can give them the confidence that their betrayals are still safe. And we can also create an opportunity for the families outside who want to depose our family to make their move, and then we can take them all down in one fell swoop. Mu Yuro's eyes softened, a faint smile escaping her lips. Yun Qinghong, in turn, let out a low chuckle, genuinely pleased. You've truly grown, Zuer, Yun Qinghong said with a smile. Your reasoning isn't much different from mine. Renzu only smiled and said, It's been a long year of learning under my master, but I still have much to learn. And regarding this matter I just mentioned, I have a suggestion. 12 hours later. Spending time with his parents was good. It was nearly night when Renzu left their private courtyard, raising his arms to the sky as he stretched deeply. The dry sound of his shoulders popping echoed faintly on the snow-covered stone path. Snowflakes continued to fall slowly and steadily, as if the sky were in no hurry at all. He paused for a moment, staring at the dull gray of the clouds covering the sky even at night. In his perception at that moment, there was something in the air that felt denser than usual, a silent omen that, from then on, nothing would ever be the same. Perhaps that was it. Perhaps not. He wasn't entirely sure. But if he had to name that feeling, he would call it an early longing for the routine of training. A part of him had fallen in love with the discipline he had chosen for himself. Someone born in the modern world, who had never tasted the thrill of growing stronger day by day, couldn't help but be enchanted by the process. Although the routine was enchanting, he knew he couldn't let himself fall in love with it forever. There was an invisible limit to that comfort zone. No matter how talented he had become, advancing in the profound way grew exponentially more difficult as one progressed. It was an immutable truth. The higher one climbed in cultivation, the thicker and more impenetrable the wall ahead became. Even so, he knew he wasn't slow. Quite the contrary. After all, who else could have crossed from the elementary profound realm to the earth profound realm in just a single year? And without relying on legacies. Though he had resorted to one in the beginning, one that barely boosted his cultivation, the majority of the path had been walked through his own effort and talent. Renzu shook his head, pushing away the vanity that tried to take root in his thoughts. His eyes lifted one last time to the gray sky, as if searching for something only he could understand. Then, without hesitation, he activated the ancestral spatial symbol. A gray flash enveloped his figure. In the blink of an eye, Renzu reappeared on the shores of a familiar lake, the same one where, months ago, he had witnessed the little demon empress. The water's surface reflected the cloudy night sky, and the snow fell gently, melting into small ripples as it touched the water's mirror. He stood still, letting the snowflakes slowly accumulate in his black hair. His eyes turned to a distant point, where the horizon seemed to merge with the stormy clouds. The ancestor of the illusory demon royal family had originally been just a neon demonic sparrow who, by a twist of fate, assumed human form. However, upon entering the Lightning Flame Valley, he inherited the sacred legacy of the Golden Crow, gaining not only its bloodline but also its divine flames. With such power, he became invincible within the illusory demon realm. Faced with such absolute strength, the clans did not hesitate. They decided he would become the first emperor of the realm. Since then, his lineage prospered. The illusory demon royal family claimed direct descent from the Golden Crow, proclaiming themselves blessed by the divine beast. The Lightning Flame Valley, in turn, was renamed the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley and became the most sacred territory within the illusory demon realm. The elemental aura that permeated that valley was suffocatingly dense. The flames and storms circulating in the region fueled the continuous birth of fire spirits, lightning spirits, and other demonic creatures aligned with the elements. Moreover, the place was a true nest of rare materials and natural treasures, making entering the valley not only a valuable experience but a chance to defy the heavens with luck. It was common for those who ventured through its trails to emerge with fortunes, and, not rarely, with a meteoric advance in their cultivation. However, such a privilege was reserved for the illusory demon royal family and the 12 guardian families, who were granted permission to enter the valley once every 5 years. Yet, after the tragic incident a century ago, the Yun family was excluded from this right, while the new generations of the other guardian families reaped invaluable rewards within the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley. The Yun family's youths could only watch, silently gnawing at their bitterness, trapped in the frustration of powerlessness. At the heart of the valley, in its most inaccessible depths, rested the soul of the Golden Crow, in a sacred place known as the Golden Crow's Sacred Land. It was a place of legends, whose entrance opened only once every 1,000 years. However, to enter such a domain, a unique key was required: the Demon Emperor's Seal, an artifact that had long been lost in the profound Sky Continent, along with his adoptive grandfather. Yet, he didn't exactly need that artifact, for his mastery over space would allow him to teleport directly there. Still, he decided to approach the little demon empress first. He knew how much she longed to enter that place to inherit the Golden Crow's legacy and fulfill her vengeance. He intended to use that desire as an opportunity to win her over. But how to do so intelligently? He had been thinking about it for the past 8 months before making a decision. Instead of flattering her or making empty promises, he preferred a more direct and dangerous path. He would face her openly, with the arrogance of someone who already knew the outcome of the battle. His intention would be clear: to create a rivalry. He was confident he could defeat her and, more importantly, knew she wouldn't accept being surpassed so easily. The little demon empress was driven by a thirst for vengeance, and by losing to him in the right way, that desire would also turn toward him. And that was exactly the spark of obsession he wanted to ignite. She would try to defeat him again in the future, of that he had no doubt. And in this game of provocations and confrontations, he would find the opportunity to become someone indispensable in her path. That was what he wanted, at least. However, deep down he knew this was a risky bet, an idea that could prove foolish in the future. Everything depended on factors beyond his control. She could very well develop genuine hatred, something that crossed the line of provocation and turned into a real desire to kill him. Fortunately, he was handsome enough that this was unlikely to happen, as long as he didn't act like a complete idiot. His face gave him a generous margin of error, and he knew very well how to use it. Still, he needed to be careful. He couldn't reveal his intentions too explicitly. It had to seem like an accident, a misunderstanding, an inevitable clash between two proud individuals. Now, why go through all this trouble just for her? The answer was ridiculously simple. Sure, there was the perverse thrill of stealing one of the women who, in the future, would belong to Scumche. It was almost a pastime. But deep down, the real reason was far more primal. 8 months ago, when he saw her for the first time, he found the little demon empress absurdly beautiful. Far too beautiful. And attractive enough that his mind simply dismissed any logical argument against the idea. He was a simple man. A calm man. And above all, a man honest with himself. The fact is that every man, on some level, is impacted by a woman's appearance in the first instant. It's not about a conscious desire or an articulated thought, but a natural reflex, rooted in thousands of years of evolution. The male mind is biologically shaped to react to visual cues that indicate health, fertility, and youth, factors that, from a biological standpoint, are associated with survival and the continuation of the species. The eyes capture the forms before any trace of personality can be known. The harmony of the face, the glow of the skin, the proportion of the body, all of this is processed in milliseconds, even without intention. It's a primitive filter that precedes any rational judgment. In that first moment, a man isn't evaluating character, intelligence, or values. He's simply reacting to the visual impact, to the snap his brain makes when it perceives patterns deemed attractive. This doesn't mean all men share a single standard of beauty. Culture, personal experiences, and even social context influence what each one perceives as beautiful. But the crucial point is that, regardless of these variations, appearance is the first gateway. It's like a beautiful envelope that draws attention before the content is read. A man may not cling to it later, may value other qualities far more over time, but the first impulse, the one that hooks his attention in those initial seconds, is almost always visual. This process isn't a conscious choice. It's not a decision he ponders or something he can turn off with a rational command. The male brain simply works this way, and that doesn't make it superficial or incapable of seeing beyond. It merely reveals the natural order in which information reaches him. Appearance sparks the initial interest, the person's content determines whether that interest endures. After all, the visual is the first language the male brain learns to interpret even before words. What each man does with that perception, whether he remains fixated on it or transcends it, is what truly defines his character. As he thought about all this and recalled the image of the little demon empress without clothes in his mind, he couldn't help but let his thoughts wander. The world he was in was filled with insane beauties, women so stunning they could make any man lose his head or his soul. And honestly, he was curious to see if all these legends lived up to their fame. But that was a thought for later. For now, he had a demon empress to provoke. A faint smile appeared on his lips. Renzu untied the belt that held his robes and, with a deliberately slow movement, let the fabric slide off his shoulders. The tunic slipped down without resistance and fell to the ground in a soft murmur, muffled by the snow. He took a step forward, barefoot, then another and another until the water touched his ankles and kept advancing, letting the water rise over his legs, his hips, until his entire body was submerged up to his waist. Immediately, an invisible gray aura enveloped his body, dissipating into the air as if he had never been there. It was the manifestation of his supreme concealment ability. With that done, he dove deeper into the lake's waters, descending slowly until he touched the silent lakebed. The lake was surprisingly deep, and as he descended, he noticed a thick current of icy energy emanating from the depths. The abrupt drop in temperature was suffocating, but he reacted immediately, enveloping his body in the vermilion bird's flames to resist the biting cold as he continued his descent. The little demon empress possessed the Golden Crow's bloodline but had not inherited the record of the burning world, the manual that allowed full control over the Golden Crow's flames. Because of this, as the energy of the flames matured within her body, the burden of keeping them under control became unbearable. That was why she resorted to extreme methods to pacify the Golden Crow's flames, as she had done on that occasion 8 months ago when he first observed her. 1,000 meters below the surface, threads and currents of cold energy still snaked through the waters, remnants of an icy spring that once exuded a far denser chilling energy than it did now. It was this spring that the little demon empress used to suppress the chaotic flames raging within her body. However, it was clear she had already resorted to this place countless times. What was once an icy spring capable of freezing the soul had now lost much of its effect, and he guessed it would lose its potency entirely in 1 or 2 months. He sat at the bottom, in a meditative position, patiently awaiting the arrival of the little demon empress. In no time, he saw a beautiful figure appear at the edge of the pool. She was looking around with a cold glint in her eyes, like a god of death, before burning her clothes and revealing her enchanting body to the world and entering the pool. Fanfic novels and hey, wanna just read ahead a bit? Fanfic novels for $2.99. You can read up to 5 chapters ahead. Perfect for avoiding spoilers or just binging. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. 12, Chapter 12, The Immortal and the Demon Empress. As usual, before approaching, she had probed the surroundings with her sharp senses. As a ruler, it would be unacceptable, even humiliating, to be seen in a scene as vulgar as bathing in an isolated lake. Fortunately, there was no one around. Only then did she allow herself to relax. She entered the water with the same ease as someone who had repeated that gesture countless times. It had been 10 years since she discovered that icy lake capable of calming the raging flames of the Golden Crow that burned within her body. As she closed her eyes and tried to control the flames, wisps of steam began to rise from beneath her feet, quickly intertwining into thick columns. In the blink of an eye, the entire surface of the lake was enveloped in vapor. At that moment, following a bubbling sound, a jet of water surged from the lake's surface. The jet seemed to ignite a wildfire as the entire lake's surface trembled and churned while boiling. No, it was the entire contents of the lake. It was actually boiling. Steam rose to the skies as the water in the lake churned violently. A wave of heat assaulted hundreds of meters around, and shockingly, all the water in the lake had turned into a pool of boiling water. She remained fixed in place, not moving an inch as the boiling lake water soaked her body. And that body, covered with dewdrops, seemed to shimmer, making it even softer and more enchanting than before, stirring an uncontrollable desire within any observer. However, the water droplets didn't linger on her body for long, as they quickly evaporated. Both her eyes remained closed, but her delicate and lovely face occasionally trembled, as if she were in some kind of pain. Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence, pulling her out of her concentration. "I know I'm handsome and all, but it's kind of rude to get naked and jump into a bath with me. Though now it feels like a hot spring thanks to your lovely flames. So, keep heating the water, please." The voice was warm, smooth, with an unpretentious confidence that seemed to caress the ears. It was like an immortal wine, dangerous and addictive, capable of intoxicating even the proudest soul. Her heart raced, an involuntary reaction, as if her body betrayed her mind for the first time in years. Without thinking, she turned abruptly toward the voice, and what she saw made her pupils contract. There, casually leaning against the edge of the pool, was a completely naked man, as if the lake were his own territory. The world around her vanished the moment that beautiful man entered her field of vision. Her mind went blank, her breathing stopped entirely, and her heart began to pound rapidly, like a deer caught in headlights. The man before her eyes wasn't simply handsome. No adjective, metaphor, or comparison could faithfully describe what his features embodied. It was like trying to trap the infinite within a single word. His skin was a subtle shade of snow, emitting an inner glow, as if every cell were imbued with a serene, constant light. It wasn't the morbid pallor of the frail, but the natural luminosity of something that transcended the very definition of flesh. There were no imperfections, no traces of scars or marks from excessive training. It was as if the gods had sculpted his form at the absolute pinnacle of the concept of human, and then, unsatisfied, bestowed upon him a touch of divinity, just to ensure no one like him would ever exist again. Every muscle was molded to perfection, not exaggerated, not understated. His broad shoulders supported a defined chest, but without ostentation, as if the strength stored there was silent, discreet, hidden beneath a veneer of absolute perfection. His abdomen was a map of surgically precise lines, as if each ridge were a masterpiece of symmetry, designed not to flaunt raw power but to hypnotize the eyes that dared to gaze upon it. His long, straight black hair danced in the breeze like strands of immaculate silk, forming an almost poetic contrast with the whiteness of his skin. His dark, deep, abyssal eyes reflected her naked figure with an almost inhuman calm. The moment their eyes met, the little demon empress felt words catch in her throat, like a young maiden caught in her first mistake. The heat of the lake seemed to merge with the flush rising to her face, but she knew it wasn't caused by the raging flames of the golden crow. The mere sight of that figure made her body burn in a different way. It was the first time she had ever felt this way. She was so shocked, so disoriented, that she didn't even notice she was completely naked before him. Even her attempts to suppress the raging flames of the golden crow ceased, and the lake, once boiling, slowly returned to its natural temperature, as if reflecting her momentary loss of control. She desperately tried to grasp at something, anything, to dilute the haze beginning to cloud her mind. How had she not sensed him before? Even now, looking directly at him, she couldn't discern his cultivation level. She felt no fluctuations of profound energy emanating from his body. How had he managed to sneak in here without her noticing? Anger and shame tried to surface, like instinctive reflexes, but they were immediately swallowed by the oppressive, disorienting sensation overwhelming her, especially when she noticed the sincere smile he gave her softly, which left her mind blank again. She felt an urge to claim him for herself at that moment. It was a desire so deep it seemed etched directly into her soul, ignoring reason, pride, or status. And then, a flash of clarity cut through the fog in her mind. She was completely naked. The impact of that realization hit her like a lightning bolt. The heat that had previously felt diffuse and uncontrollable now concentrated brutally in her face, burning hotter than any flame she had ever conjured. Her body, previously rigid from shock, trembled with a start, as if awakening from a deep trance. Instinctively, her hands moved to cover her chest and abdomen, her trembling fingers and ragged breathing betraying her complete loss of control. It was at that moment that the stupor shattered completely. As fast as light, she moved. One moment, her naked body was there, vulnerable, exposed. The next, like an illusory flash, the afterimage of a young woman clad in a gray dress floated in the air above the lake, as if the naked version had never existed. It was the same dress she had worn before entering the lake. A cold, sinister gaze, like that of a god of death, shot directly toward the man who seemed like an immortal walking the mortal world, while a chilling, killing intent, as if composed of countless ice blades, instantly filled the night sky. The man, however, didn't seem the least bit fazed by the murderous intent radiating from her. He merely furrowed his brow slightly, as if dealing with a trivial annoyance, and spoke calmly. Want to fight? Let me say this first. I was here before you arrived. So, I definitely didn't peek at you on purpose. He raised a hand in a casual gesture, as if the logic were unquestionable. Of course I looked, but that's because you undressed right in front of me. That has nothing to do with me. In fact, I'm the one who should be mad here. Got it? You practically violated me with your eyes earlier. I'm a pure man, you know? You'll have to take responsibility for this. Okay? The little demon empress nearly leaped into the air, even while floating, overcome with such absurd fury that she didn't know whether to scream or reduce him to ashes. Who the hell is this guy? Violated? He's the one who saw me naked. Though I also saw. She gritted her teeth, her cheeks burning. What a bastard. He appeared out of nowhere, like a ghost, and every word that comes out of that mouth is so shameless, and he even seems proud of it. If there were a competition to crown the most shameless bastard in the world, he'd surely be holding the crown, smiling as if it were a trophy. She took a deep breath, her fists clenched, as her uneven breathing made her chest rise and fall in waves, fueled by both anger and humiliation. A wave of fury blossomed in her chest, burning, fierce, on the verge of overflowing. He saw her completely naked. Boom! The sound of an explosion erupted, shaking the valley like thunder tearing through the skies. All the water in the lake was violently ripped from its surface, engulfing the girl's jade-like body in a liquid storm that shot toward the heavens. When the water fell back, soaking the earth with a muffled roar, the little demon empress had already vanished. In her place, only a trembling afterimage remained, dissipating like a visual echo. She moved, like a bolt of lightning. She closed the distance between them, her killing intent condensed into a single, cruel, precise, lethal strike. But when her hand sliced through the air, the man was no longer there. He vanished. Like a ghost, his figure disappeared from her field of vision, only to reappear calmly on a rock on the other side of the lake, now fully dressed. His long black hair danced in the wind, and a lazy smile played on his lips, as if the attempted attack were nothing more than a childish game. Hey, I was starting to enjoy the sauna, you know? No need to be so aggressive. He tilted his head slightly, as if genuinely lamenting the interruption. But it's fine. I get it. After all, you just abused me, so you must be nervous. The playful tone, the unpretentious calm, everything about him was a direct affront to her pride, intensifying her killing intent even more. Renzu looked at the little demon empress with slight surprise. It was the first time in his life he had felt such a terrifying killing intent from another person, almost comparable to his own. To possess such killing intent, this girl must have killed countless people and must see life as mere grass. If she were to kill him, she would undoubtedly do so without batting an eyelid. But he wasn't worried. She slowly extended her delicate palm, a hand carved from snowy jade, pure and immaculate, and murmured, her voice trembling with contained fury. Unforgivable. The world seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly, the sky transformed into a scarlet sea. The night was consumed by the color of blood. Boom! It was as if a volcano, dormant for millennia, had awakened in a single instant. The entire earth trembled, writhing as if trying to escape a power it couldn't withstand. The ground tore apart, and a column of blood-red flames shot straight up, covering a distance of over 3 kilometers, painting the night skies with an aurora of destruction. The impact was so brutal that the world itself seemed to shudder. Beneath the thick cloud of smoke and dust that rose to the heavens, a colossal crater was revealed. It was dozens of meters deep, as if a giant had punched the earth in fury. Within a 3-kilometer radius, everything, absolutely everything, had been reduced to dust. Not a single blade of grass remained, not even a grain of gravel. The air vibrated, distorted by the heat. Countless fires burned around the crater, devouring the world without haste, refusing to extinguish. Even the skies seemed ablaze, stained with a crimson light that made it impossible to distinguish where the earth ended and the heavens began. And in the middle of that inferno of flames, dust, and absolute silence, the little demon empress remained motionless in her original spot. That was dangerous, you know? The voice, warm and serene, sounded right beside her ear. In the next instant, something firm and warm wrapped around her neck. Time froze. His arm, strong yet incredibly light, rested around her delicate neck as if that space had always been reserved for him. There wasn't enough force to harm her, but the presence was overwhelming. She, the little demon empress, was being held like a stubborn cat that needed to be calmed. Her body stiffened. Impossible. This was impossible. She hadn't sensed him move. No sound, no energy fluctuation, nothing. He had crossed her field of perception so easily. Her heart began to pound in her chest. She could feel the warmth of his body through the thin fabric of her dress, could feel the warm breath brushing her ear. But what was killing her was the scent. It was an absurdly clean smell. Not sweet, not aggressive. It was as if the clear blue sky had been compressed into a fragrance. A refreshing scent, but with a masculine tone that seemed to cling to her nostrils and dissolve any remnant of rationality. The man, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying the situation. He leaned in even closer, his lips almost brushing her sensitive ear, and whispered with a tone laced with cruel gentleness. "You almost killed me just now. That was kind of rude, don't you think?" Her skin prickled. She tried to open her mouth to respond, but no sound came out. "But it's okay. I forgive you. On one condition. You're buying me dinner. I'm hungry, you know?" Bam! The last barrier of rationality in her mind shattered. She turned her head slowly, her eyes ablaze, ready to spew an ocean of insults and flames. But before she could say anything, the arm around her dissolved like an illusion. When she realized, Renzu was already 5 steps away. The silence grew tense. You insolent bastard. Immoral. Shameless. Arrogant to the core." The little demon empress exploded, her face completely flushed with vivid red. Her words spat like frozen blades, each insult piercing the air with an almost palpable killing intent. But she didn't stop at words. Boom! The air around her imploded, collapsing under the pressure of a speed so absurd that space seemed to warp to accommodate her movement. In an instant, she vanished from common sight, leaving only a crimson blur in the air. And in the next moment, she was behind Renzu, her open palm covered in flames that seemed to burn the world. The strike tore through space, creating a wave of destruction that carved a crater in a straight line for hundreds of meters. The flames, dense and heavy as magma, roared from her fingers, ready to reduce even a mountain to ashes. But Renzu was no longer there. With a subtle step as casual as a stroll, he tilted his body slightly to the side, letting the attack pass mere centimeters away, as if the world were in slow motion for him. "That was dangerous, you know?" Renzu commented, his eyes half closed in an expression of mock displeasure, as if dealing with a tantrum-throwing child. To think someone with such a cute expression has this homicidal streak. Before she could retort, a whirlwind of fire and wind erupted beneath her feet. She reappeared above him, her fingers forming a seal, and the entire sky exploded into a storm of flaming spears. Each one carried enough force to pierce a mountain, but Renzu, with a simple raise of his eyebrows, leaped backward, landing on one of the spears as if it were a solid platform. The little demon empress gave him no respite. She appeared in front of him again, in a movement so abrupt that the air seemed to shatter into invisible shards of glass. Her fists, covered in a mix of crimson fire and golden lightning, shot forward like incarnated thunder, aiming directly at the face of that detestable man. Renzu, however, dodged with movements so smooth they bordered on insulting. A slight tilt of the head, a step to the side, a twist of the wrist to deflect an attack with the tips of his fingers. It was as if he were dancing through a minefield, each dodge more infuriating than the last. "You really want to kiss me, don't you? I get it," he said, after dodging a kick that sliced a boulder in half. "But if you're going to throw me to the ground, at least buy a mattress first, okay? This ground is uncomfortable." "Shut up," she roared, her patience reduced to dust. Renzu gently twirled his wrist. From his hand, a simple, austere sword materialized. No ornaments, no gems, no engravings, it was a pure blade, made of a metal that seemed to devour light itself. The moment he held it, the entire sky seemed to freeze. Krrrrrhhhhh. The sound was like giant bones shattering. In the sky above him, swords began to fall. No, they weren't falling. They were appearing, filling the sky with layer upon layer of blades. Each one enveloped in a bloody aura so dense it seemed to turn the air into a suffocating, oppressive crimson tide. The little demon empress held her breath. "This is..." She bit her lips, surprised. She could feel it. Many of the swords carried the aura of heaven-profound weapons, but there were others that made her shudder. Swords that emitted a pressure comparable to sovereign profound weapons, as if a single blade could destroy cities, cleave mountains, and part seas. And yet, Renzu wielded them as if they were mere toys. The atmosphere grew heavy, and the temperature, previously dominated by the heat of the golden crow's flames, dropped abruptly. The little demon empress advanced, forming a seal with her hands. In an instant, golden flames erupted around her, taking the shape of a golden bird made of fire. The sky, once dominated by the swords, was engulfed by a scorching wave of heat and light. This was a strike that not even an advanced-level monarch could face head-on without paying a price. But Renzu didn't retreat. He raised his sword with a casual gesture, and the countless blades in the sky began to spin, layer upon layer stacked, forming an impenetrable wall of steel and bloody aura. Boom! The impact was like the collision of two primordial forces. The flaming bird crashed against the shield of swords, and for a moment, the entire world seemed to stop. The sky erupted into a storm of flames and steel. Devastating shockwaves swept through the valley, uprooting trees and bending the earth. Rocks shattered like glass, and mountains crumbled into rubble. But in the middle of that apocalypse, Renzu stood motionless. His clothes fluttered under the pressure, and his black hair danced like living shadows, but his expression was one of unshakable calm. Though he appeared casual in defending that attack, it was clear he was taking the fight seriously, to the point of employing his sword art to its fullest capacity. If it weren't for the advantages he possessed, a body that, in this low-level world, was practically divine, high-level profound arts, vast combat experience, absolute mastery over space through the ancestral spatial symbol, and unique profound veins. He would have died the moment she attacked him the first time, but what he was doing was utterly absurd. How could someone in the earth-profound realm fight against a monarch? Well, thanks to his extreme physical training, he had elevated his strength to an absurd level, and along with it, his agility, endurance, and all his physical attributes had reached a similar tier. His reaction speed, in particular, had been refined not only through training but through countless battles, to the point of being able to anticipate his opponent's attacks with ease. It was this combination that allowed him to dodge the little demon empress's attacks, and through his mastery of space, he could teleport to evade even further. Basically, his profound energy was of little use in this fight, but it served to help him execute his limitless sword art, which, due to his control over profound energy, consumed very little. The shield of swords successfully withstood. The little demon empress gritted her teeth. With a simple snap of his fingers, the tens of thousands of swords in the sky began to spin in a complex, hypnotic formation, each one moving as if it were an extension of his own body. The swords descended. Like a rain of shooting stars, they tore through the sky, not aimed at killing her but at pressuring her, cutting off her escape routes, forcing her to dance as he wanted. With every move she made, more swords appeared at impossible angles, like predators testing their prey's limits. The little demon empress moved with mastery, dodging in elegant arcs, firing bursts of golden flames to deflect some blades, destroying others with her fiery fists. But every sword destroyed seemed to multiply into 10 more. She growled, launching a fist charged with golden flames that obliterated a dozen swords in a blinding flash. In the next instant, he vanished. She only had time to turn her head when she felt a devastating pressure forming behind her. Renzu appeared, leaping from a sword mid-air, spinning in a slashing motion with his leg extended. His leg, covered in a red aura, sliced through the air like a living blade. In hand-to-hand combat, he could easily kill someone at the little demon empress's level, but since he didn't want that to happen, he held back. She raised her arms in a cross to block, but at the moment of impact, it was as if a thunderbolt had exploded inside her body. Ugh! She was thrown like a doll, crashing into one of the mountains surrounding the lake, the rock shattering around her. But before she could react, the swords were already there. Like hungry serpents, they surrounded her in a vortex of blades, slicing the air with a deafening hum. She let out a muffled scream, releasing a torrent of flames that exploded around her, burning and repelling the nearest blades. However, one sword, faster and quieter than the others, tore through the sleeve of her dress, leaving a thin, bloody cut on her shoulder. She gasped, more from anger than pain. "Damn you!" She shot forward again, like a flaming arrow, straight toward the man who was already waiting for her with a provocative smile. Renzu leaped from the sword he was on, meeting her in the air. The clash of their fists was like a collision of stars. The shockwave distorted the sky, creating a vacuum of silence before the sound reached mortal ears. In the midst of the whirlwind of blows, Renzu moved his hand with control, and one of the swords positioned itself as a foothold beneath his feet. He used it as leverage to spin, dodging her fist and, with an open palm, struck the little demon empress's stomach with precision. She gasped. It wasn't a lethal blow, but the force was enough to send her body crashing to the ground like a meteor. She collided with the earth with a boom that reverberated for kilometers, raising a colossal cloud of dust and flames. Renzu descended shortly after, floating slowly above the newly formed crater on a sword, the blades lazily spinning around him like silent guardians, sweat beginning to trickle down his back. "You're slowing down. Tired." His voice carried a tone of fake concern that almost made her want to kill him again. "Shut up." The little demon empress rose from the midst of the dust. In the next instant, both vanished from the ground. The sound of their clashing blows echoed like relentless thunder. reverberating through the heart of the mountains. Rinzhu, controlling each sword around him like a conductor's fingers, began to engage her in hand-to-hand combat, using the blades not to kill her, but to restrict her movements, forcing her to keep a frenetic pace. Each of his strikes was accompanied by a blade that appeared to complement, interrupt, or guide her dance. And in the midst of that battle, where golden flames collided with bloody steel, one fact became clear to the little demon empress. He was holding back. The bastard was having fun with her. The heat around her intensified to an unbearable point. The lake, the mountains, the very sky trembled under the pressure of the golden flames surrounding her. She raised both hands to the sky. The sky turned golden, and a colossal shadow took shape behind her. It was a firebird of titanic proportions, with wings spanning kilometers and eyes that seemed to embody the very essence of the sun. Each flap of its wings made the space groan, bending under a heat that made the mountains sweat. The bird's wings descended. The world was split. A single flap of that flaming bird would be enough to turn oceans into deserts. And yet, the man she was trying to crush just smiled. Rinzhu extended his arm forward, and the sky, previously golden with the little demon empress's flames, turned scarlet, as if bleeding. Aware that he couldn't sustain the fight much longer due to the difference in cultivation levels, he concentrated all his profound energy into a final attack. There was no room for hesitation. Knowing this, he activated the 9-star Thunder King. First stage. Fist of the world-collapsing Star Thunder King. The air trembled. From the sky descended a colossal projection of a fist. But this was no mere attack. Red lightning crackled like maddened dragons. The pressure was so absurd that even the laws of space began to shatter. The fist was larger than mountains. When the fist of the Thunder King collided with the wings of the Firebird, the impact was so devastating that the world lost sound for a moment. The sky was torn apart. The Firebird screeched, its flaming body torn apart by the lightning. The last thing she saw was the lightning fist descending upon her, the red light dominating her entire field of vision. The world went dark. Everything faded to black. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she noticed was a warm, steady breath against her neck. She was in his arms. Rinzhu held her with an expression that didn't match the shameless man from before. His eyes were half closed, watching her with genuine concern, as if she were something too precious to break. "Hey, you overdid it," he murmured, a slight reproach in his voice, though his tone was surprisingly gentle. "If you're going to try to kill me, at least do it without destroying yourself in the process. Got it?" The little demon empress tried to protest, but her body wouldn't obey. Her consciousness floated on the edge of fainting. The last thing she saw before her vision darkened was that infuriating face smiling softly at her. Dear readers, today I'm not writing to tell a story or share an idea, but to open my heart. It's difficult for me to put these words on paper, but I feel the need to be honest and transparent. Life has curious ways of teaching us about value and fragility. For many, sound is just part of daily life. A child's laughter, the melody of a song, the simple good morning from a friend. But for those who live with hearing loss, these little treasures become memories, echoes that seem to fade away a little more each day. I know exactly what that feels like. In recent years, I have lost much more than just the ability to hear. I've lost moments, conversations, laughter, and even part of my independence. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in a world where silence is not a choice, but an imposition? Where you struggle to read lips, interpret gestures, and still feel like you're always one step behind everyone else? That is my everyday life. A hearing aid could change my life. It's not just about hearing sounds again, it's about regaining dignity, about being part of conversations again, about no longer feeling isolated in a group. It's about hearing the voices of the people I love. It's about feeling that I belong to the world around me. The problem is that, in my country, this device costs $4,000. For some, that number might not seem so distant, but for me it is almost unreachable. It is a huge wall between me and the chance to live fully again. I work hard, I do what I can, but that amount is far beyond my reality. And this is where I step into delicate territory. Asking for help. It's not easy for me. I've always tried to solve things on my own, but I've learned that sometimes we need the kindness of others to move forward. That's why I write this message with all the sincerity of my soul. I need your help. You may not know me personally. Perhaps you stumbled across this text by chance. But if my words have reached you, please know that every contribution, small or large, will be like a breath of hope. I'm not just raising money. I'm trying to reclaim the right to hear life itself. Think of everything sound means to you. The unexpected laughter of a friend. The song that comforts you on hard days. The birdsong at dawn. Now imagine losing that. That is how I live, and that is what I want to recover. I believe in the power of empathy. I know the world can be cold and harsh at times, but I also know there are incredible people who extend their hand even to those they've never met. People who understand that generosity is an act that transforms not only the life of the one who receives, but also the one who gives. If you can help me in any way, you will be giving me back something priceless. The chance to hear again. Maybe you're thinking, but I can only give a little. Does it really make a difference? Yes, it does. Every cent is one less brick in the wall that separates me from the world of sound. Every bit of help is one more step toward freedom. And even if you cannot donate, simply sharing my story is already an enormous form of support. That's why I ask you to consider subscribing to my Patreon. There, you can contribute monthly with small amounts and, in return, follow my journey more closely. This recurring support is a way to give me stability and security for the future, not only for the hearing aid, but for all the care and adjustments my condition requires. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanfictionnovels. I don't know if I will reach this goal, but I know I have to try. And if you give me this chance, I promise your kindness will never be forgotten. I promise that on the day I put on this device, every laugh, every word, and every melody I hear again will also be a victory of yours. Today, silence dominates my world. But with your help, this silence can be transformed into music, into life, into love. With an open heart, I ask, help me hear again. Thank you for reading this far. Thank you for dedicating a moment of your life to think of mine. If you can reach out, know that you will be changing my life forever. With gratitude, Fanfic Novels, 13. Chapter 13 Insurrection, I. The last attack completely depleted his profound energy. As a result, after holding the little demon empress in his arms, Renzu was forced to rely solely on his normal physical speed. He advanced at a terrifying pace toward Great Zhou Mountain, so fast that the snowflakes gently falling to the ground evaporated in his wake. Yet, his movements were gentle and careful, as if he feared harming the fragile body he carried in his arms. The little demon empress, unconscious, rested against his chest, cradled in his arms like a sleeping princess. Renzu crossed plains, leaped over chasms, and left a red blur in the air until, finally, the terrain began to change. The dense mist of Great Zhou Mountain started to dissipate as he ventured deeper. A hidden valley came into view. At its center, a small island of emerald grass floated atop a lake of crystal-clear water, so pure it reflected the sky like a mirror. Waterfalls cascaded gently down the surrounding mountain slopes. Colorful fish swam in schools, leaping across the water's surface as if greeting the visitor's arrival. In the heart of the island stood a simple cabin, built from polished dark wood. It was clearly handmade. Wildflowers bloomed around the house, and a small stone path led to the door. When Renzu softly landed on the island, the moonlight, previously hidden by the dense winter clouds of the mountain, pierced through the veil of mist, bathing the valley in a silvery glow. The moon's rays reflected off the waterfall droplets, forming faint rainbows that floated around the cabin. Upon entering, the atmosphere of the place revealed a stark contrast to the outside world. The interior was warm, with dark wooden furniture, shelves filled with scrolls, and herbs carefully hung on the walls. At the center, a wide bed covered with simple, but impeccably clean white linen sheets. Renzu approached, knelt beside the bed, and laid the little demon empress down with utmost care. His fingers gently brushed aside some wet strands of hair clinging to her forehead, and with a precise touch, he pressed 2 acupuncture points below her neck. Then he stood and walked to a small table where a ceramic teapot rested. With a casual wave of his hand, he made the pure lake water rise like a liquid serpent into the pot, while his other hand performed precise gestures, adding dried herbs in a meticulous dance. In a matter of seconds, the medicinal tea was ready, exuding a sweet aroma with soft, slightly spicy notes. Renzu sat in silence, calmly sipping the tea, his gaze resting on the still unconscious little demon empress. That battle had been far too risky. Facing monarchs was clearly at the limit of his current capabilities. He had to give everything to emerge victorious. This only reinforced how urgent it was to cultivate and reach the profound sky realm, or even the profound emperor realm, if he wanted to confidently claim he was truly invincible in this lower-tier world. Moreover, he needed to start unlocking the 8 inner gates within his body. Only then could he continue strengthening his physique to even more terrifying levels. But despite these reflections, his thoughts soon dissipated before the sight in front of him. The truth was, as he looked at that woman whose stunning beauty seemed to defy all logic, he couldn't help but feel a subtle discomfort. A strange, indefinable feeling took hold of his heart. Even he couldn't clearly explain it, but something made him feel he had made a mistake in approaching her this way. A silent, bitter sensation gripped his heart. It wasn't shame about nudity, nor was it about the battle. It was something deeper, perhaps the way he had approached her. Perhaps the fact that, to make this encounter possible, he had chosen a path manipulated by himself. She deserved more than an encounter disguised as chance. But that was the only way he could think of to get close to her. Although he could have tried in another place or occasion, Renzu didn't know of any other location the little demon empress frequented regularly. That's why he chose the lake. By being there before her arrival, he created a convenient ambiguity. Technically, he wasn't following her, just enjoying the place by coincidence. This made the approach less suspicious. In practical terms, it established a context where the encounter could be interpreted as a twist of fate, and sometimes, coincidence is more powerful than any plan. When dealing with figures of authority, especially those with unpredictable temperaments like hers, any direct approach could be seen as a threat or manipulation. In this scenario, it was she who invaded the space. This subtle inversion offered the illusion of control, reducing the perception of risk and allowing the interaction to unfold more naturally. Psychologically, unexpected encounters in neutral places, especially in moments of mutual vulnerability, like when both were unclothed, tend to create instinctive tension and curiosity. When handled well, this tension can transform into openness, connection, and, over time, trust. It was like trying to approach someone unattainable. Imagine a young man trying to talk to a wealthy, famous influencer surrounded by bodyguards in a crowded mall. The approach would seem forced, invasive, disposable. But if, by chance, the two met alone on an isolated trail, tired, breathing the same air, resting by the same stream, there would be no audience, no pressure. Just the moment, and the conversation would then have room to blossom. And that's what he sought. The fact that he was already at the lake before her made everything seem like a coincidence. And the human brain loves coincidences, tending to interpret them as signs, destiny, purpose. This psychological phenomenon, known as the spontaneity heuristic, makes people more receptive to what seems to have happened naturally, without deliberate intent. By not taking the direct initiative, Renzu gave her the feeling that control was in her hands. It was she who entered the lake. It was she who saw him. And, consciously or not, it was she who chose to stay. This subtle transfer of agency reinforced her autonomy, and the more someone feels in control, the easier it is to accept the other's presence. And there was one more crucial detail. Both were naked. In that fraction of a moment, there was no empress or cultivator, just two human beings leveled by vulnerability. And it's precisely in that raw, unexpected equality that true closeness has a chance to emerge. But all this was just the first impression. The rest would depend on their interactions in the coming days. He let out a soft sigh, his fingers still warmed by the now empty teacup. Renzu shook his head slightly, as if trying to dispel the thoughts piling up within him. In the end, they're just excuses, he murmured to himself, his voice almost inaudible, laced with something between frustration and resignation. After all, no one asks how many wounds a sculptor suffered to carve a masterpiece. All that matters is the beauty of the statue in the end. On the battlefield of life, the prize doesn't go to the one who took the most just path, but to the one who reached the top with steady hands, even if stained with mud, blood, or lies. He placed the teacup on the table with a small clink, then stared at his own hand for a moment. Since being reborn in this world, he knew he couldn't follow the path of a hero. There was no straight road paved with noble intentions and clean victories. Those who tried to live that way, blindly following principles, died early in a world like this. Or worse, they lived to see their virtues crushed by the cruel pragmatism of reality. No, he had chosen another path. A winding path, where the line between right and wrong was blurred by necessity, survival, ambition. Since he decided to defy his own fate, he was willing to bear the burden of the villain if it meant achieving what he desired. That's why he chose to stay in the Ashura field with such determination back then. Deep down, he wanted to change. And it was in that moment, facing his own limitations and weaknesses, that he took the first step, that he began to become who he wanted to be in this world. But even so, his heart hadn't turned to stone. The world wasn't black and white. It never was. It was made of infinite shades of gray, imperfect decisions, unfair circumstances, choices made with the weapons one has, not the ones one would like. The same gesture could be seen as salvation or offense, depending on whose side you were on. An act of compassion could seem like manipulation, a sacrifice, cowardice, a step forward, betrayal. In the end, morality was just a lens shaped by context, culture, and above all, convenience. He understood this better than anyone, and that's why the bitter taste of doubt still lingered in his mouth. After all, he had manipulated every step of that situation to get close to the little demon empress, driven by desires he preferred not to admit. At first, it was just the thrill of stealing one of Yun Che's future wives, a game of conquest and rivalry. Then came ambition. Marrying her would mean an elevated position in the illusory demon realm and easier access to the Golden Crow's lineage. But over time, As he saw her up close 8 months ago, that ambition gave way to a simpler, rawer desire, the desire to possess a woman so breathtaking. In any case, the means didn't matter, only the results. There was no reason to regret something already done. If it meant he had to be the villain in someone's story, so be it. If the little demon empress came to love or hate him, he wouldn't force anything. He would only try in the best way he could to win her over. He never considered her an object in any way. All he wanted was to have her as his woman. And if it didn't work out, he wouldn't waste time on it. The important thing was to try, right? Renzu stood from the chair, walked to the window, and opened the bamboo curtain. The moon shone serenely over the valley, painting the water with silvery reflections. Villain, he murmured mentally, with a faint trace of a joyless smile. The word sounded like a condemnation, but to him it was merely the raw face of freedom. Being a villain wasn't about malice. It was about accepting the choices that the good refused to make, about staining one's own hands to avoid living on one's knees. The hero is the one who asks, what is the right path? The villain asks, what is the path that will take me where I want to go? It's not about taking pleasure in manipulation or harm. It's about refusing to be chained by an ideal that only serves to keep the weak in their place. He knew his approach to that woman wasn't the most noble. The plan, the forced coincidence, it was all calculation, strategy, pragmatism. But he didn't come here to write a beautiful story. He came to change his destiny. For that, no matter how winding the path, what matters is reaching the end with one's own hands, without relying on anyone's mercy. He would rather be called a villain for forging his own path than be remembered as a defeated hero who died with a clean conscience but empty hands. In the real world, no one builds statues for defeated heroes. In the end, being a villain was just the choice to accept the price of freedom. Even if that price was being hated, misunderstood, or even hating oneself in silence. Renzu let out a soft sigh. He knew this was the truth. But he also knew it didn't make the bitter taste of doubt any easier to swallow. The faint fragrance of the tea still lingered in the air when a slight tremor from the bed broke the valley's silence. Renzu turned his gaze from the moon just in time to see the little demon empress's eyelashes flutter. Slowly, as if awakening from a deep trance, she opened her eyes. The unfamiliar ceiling, the soft lighting, the distant sound of running water. All of it was foreign to her. As she recalled the last thing before losing consciousness, her black eyes immediately gleamed with a cold, sinister light, as if they belonged to a god of death. The same terrifying gaze as before. She tried to move, and that's when she realized. Her profound energy was gone. It was as if all her profound entrances had been sealed by an invisible force. The vortex of energy within her profound veins didn't respond, and not even the smallest spark of her strength could be summoned. A shiver ran down her spine. In a single instant, all the majesty of an empress gave way to the purest instinct for survival, and her body reacted before her mind could command it. In a sudden movement, she rose from the bed, the sheets sliding off her damp skin, her eyes wide and wild, like those of a cornered beast. Where am I? Her voice came out low, hoarse, but laden with authority. Even weakened, there was a brutal intensity in her words. Her gaze swept the surroundings with speed, decoding everything around her. The simple walls, the scent of herbs, the worn wood, the bed she lay on, and finally, Renzu, standing by the window. He didn't move. He only turned his face slowly toward her. That was enough to ignite her rage even further. You! She spat the word like a blade. What did you do to me? Where is my profound energy? What is this place? Her voice grew, regaining strength with each syllable, her regal aura exploding even without the support of profound energy. Despite the evident weakness in her muscles, her murderous intent filled the cabin like a storm about to break. /N, and so, we conclude the final chapter of the mega release commissioned by GigaChad. It's been an insane marathon of chapters that, I admit, pushed my writer's soul to the brink of turning into stardust. But if you've made it this far with me, it's because you too got caught up in this avalanche of hype and plot twists. Starting from the next chapter, we'll return to our normal release schedule. Thank you for following along on this crazy journey so far. A special thanks to GigaChad for the impossible mission. Now, take a deep breath, because the next phase is just around the corner. Now, regarding what I wanted to convey with Renzu in this chapter, here's a better explanation of his personality, which is being slowly shaped. Renzu is not a villain in the classic sense of being evil or cruel for pleasure. He sees himself as a villain because he chose to walk a path where good intentions are a luxury he cannot afford. The world he lives in is governed by strength, manipulation, and the survival of the fittest. He realizes that, following a rigid moral code, acting like a pure hero, would only lead him to defeat or an early death. Living in a world where right and wrong are fluid concepts, defined by context and by the victor, demands pragmatism. For Rinzhu, he is called a villain because he is willing to do what others don't have the courage to do. He manipulates situations, anticipates moves, and uses others' weaknesses to his advantage. Not out of cruelty, but because it's the only effective way to change his fate. He accepts being the villain in someone else's story if that is the price to achieve what he desires. But, and this is the most important point, he has not lost his humanity. He feels the weight of his choices. He understands there is a fine line between acting with cold pragmatism and losing himself completely. He tries to preserve small fragments of his true self, even as he walks a path where virtues are crushed. Rinzhu does not delude himself into thinking he is a misunderstood hero. He knows his actions may be seen as wrong by others. But to him, the true villain is the one who allows himself to be crushed by the chains of fate without fighting back. To him, being a villain means being the architect of his own destiny, even if that requires manipulating the pieces. Accepting the burden of cruel decisions to achieve goals that, in the end, justify the cost. Fighting for freedom. Even if the world calls him a villain for not playing by the rules of the pure. /N, author's note. Hi everyone. I want to share something important with you. After a long time, I was finally able to see a specialist, and my current goal is to reach $1,000, the first step to buying my hearing aid. I'm very close to reaching this goal, and any support makes a huge difference. As a thank you, once this goal is reached, I'll be doing a mega release on Patreon. Around 10 chapters of each of my stories. In addition, I'll be posting 2 chapters per day on Webnovel for you to follow along. If you'd like to support me, please check out my Patreon. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who follows me and gives me the strength to keep writing. Fanfic novels for $2.99. You can read up to 5 chapters ahead. Perfect for avoiding spoilers or just binging. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. 14. Chapter 14 Insurrection. 2. The little demon empress stared at the infuriating man before her with a gaze so cold and sharp it could have been the stare of a god of death. If looks could kill, he would have died 10,000 times in that instant. She made no effort to hide her murderous intent, even knowing he was as strong as her, or perhaps stronger. Even aware that, in her current state, he could kill her with a single slap, given that her cultivation was strangely sealed. She didn't avert her gaze for a second, waiting for a response. No matter the situation she found herself in, even in the face of death, she would confront it calmly to achieve the best outcome. Even without her cultivation, the little demon empress's aura was simply too terrifying. But then, that wasn't surprising. 100 years ago, she first lost her father, then her husband, whom she had been married to for a not-so-long time, who was also her younger brother. As the last person carrying the demon emperor's bloodline, she had no choice but to bear this heavy burden, and despite that, all these years, certain people had been trying to steal the 10,000-year legacy of her ancestors. To say she was filled with hatred toward both heaven and earth was not enough to describe the feelings in her soul and heart. The infuriating man, still standing near the window, turned fully toward her. His face was serene, expressionless. He raised his hands in a peaceful gesture and then smiled. It wasn't a wide smile, nor was it provocative. It was a slight curve of his lips, delicate, simple, and absurdly beautiful. So beautiful that, for a moment, the world seemed to lose its color. Literally, everything faded, as if existence itself had become a mere backdrop to that simple smile. The little demon empress's murderous gaze faltered. Her breath caught in her chest, as if her lungs had forgotten how to function. The hatred that had been burning on the tip of her tongue evaporated, swallowed by that simple, yet devastating gesture. "I had no choice, you know?" he said indifferently, as if explaining something trivial. "You entered the lake, saw me, and, well, I was forced to confront you. I couldn't let you kill me there, could I? It was self-defense." He paused briefly, the smile on his lips gaining a touch of irony. "By the way, you should consider yourself lucky. Not everyone would be kind enough to save someone right after an assassination attempt. By now, you'd probably be food for some starving profound beast." The little demon empress snapped out of her stupor upon hearing those words. Her body trembled with rage, her teeth grinding. She was about to explode, but he cut her off. "As for where you are, well, this is Great Joe Mountain, an isolated valley I found in recent months during my closed-door training," he said, as if commenting on the weather, unhurried. "And about your sealed cultivation, that was a consequence of my last attack. Basically, it directly targets the opponent's nervous system, interrupting the connection between the profound entrances and the profound veins." He took a step forward, hands clasped behind his back, like a professor explaining a lesson to a reluctant student. "Right now, you must feel as if your cultivation is sealed. unable to mobilize any profound energy. It's a sensation of incomplete paralysis. Your body still responds to basic commands. You can move, breathe, shoot those murderous glares at me. But all circulation of profound energy, and any cultivation-related abilities, are completely blocked. He then looked at her with a half-smile, almost kind. But, considering you're a monarch, I believe the effect will wear off completely in about a week. After hearing everything the man before her was saying, she narrowed her eyes in his direction. The little demon empress's gaze could undoubtedly shatter the courage of a timid person, making them die on the spot. Fortunately, that murderous glare lasted only a moment. Following that, the cold, lifeless voice of the little demon empress cut through the air, and she said, "Should I thank you for saving me? You looked at this empress's naked body. You're lucky to still be breathing." The man remained silent for a moment, as if seriously considering the accusation. Then he sighed. A light, almost resigned sigh. "You're right," he said, tilting his head slightly in a gesture of apology, as natural as it was infuriating. "It was thoughtless of me. I apologize for seeing something I shouldn't have. It wasn't my intention to offend your dignity." For a moment, the cabin fell into absolute silence. But before the little demon empress could savor that moral victory, the infuriating man continued, with the same overwhelming serenity. "However, I was there first." She blinked, surprised by his audacity. "I arrived at the lake before nightfall," he continued, unhurried. "That place was near where I was cultivating, so I decided to take a bath." The little demon empress's eyes flickered with fury, but what irritated her most was that he wasn't lying. She huffed, her arms crossing so abruptly that her gray robe swayed lightly in the air. "Humph, that lake belongs to me," she declared with the arrogance of someone dictating a heavenly law. "You're the one who invaded this empress's territory. Therefore, the victim here is me." Renzu blinked, genuinely confused. "But the lake is literally in a public area. It's not within any territory. Does this man not know who she is?" "Ugh, how infuriating. That changes nothing," she retorted coldly. "Just because you arrived first doesn't mean the lake isn't mine. And just because it's not within anyone's territory doesn't mean it doesn't belong to me and my family. The entire illusory demon realm belongs to me as its ruler." The infuriatingly beautiful man raised an eyebrow. The smile on his lips didn't fade but gained a subtle hint of curiosity. So the entire illusory demon realm belongs to you?" The little demon empress narrowed her eyes even further, her gaze sharp as a blade. The young man tilted his head slightly, as if analyzing a puzzle. "Could it be," he began, his voice playful and unpretentious, "that you're saying you're the little demon empress?" The huff of displeasure she let out could have made even a monarch pale. Her eyes glinted coldly, as if striking down his stupidity. "You don't even recognize your own ruler?" she said, her voice laced with relentless coldness. The infuriating man, however, merely shrugged, as if facing an irrelevant detail. "I recognize when I see," he replied with genuinely irritating calmness. "But you're not exactly an accessible figure to everyone. It's not like you go parading around, do you?" The little demon empress frowned, her fingers slowly clenching into delicate fists. The man's irreverent tone was starting to irritate her in a way few had ever dared. But before she could retort, a single word escaped his lips. "But, I've heard of you." The little demon empress's gaze flickered, her irritation momentarily replaced by a spark of interest. "My father spoke of you," he continued calmly. The little demon empress stared at him, her eyes narrowing. "Your father?" The word came out in a cold tone. "And who might he be?" The young man didn't seem to notice the chill in her question. He simply smiled. "Yun Qinghong, patriarch of the Yun family." The cabin fell silent. For a moment, the little demon empress's eyes lost focus, as if her mind were processing absurd information. Yun Qinghong. That name echoed in her mind like unexpected thunder. Patriarch of the Yun family. And before her stood a man presenting himself with the utmost tranquility in the world. "Yun Renzu," he said, bowing slightly in an informal gesture of introduction. So natural it felt like a direct blow to her pride. "A pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty." The little demon empress remained silent for a brief moment. That name, Yun Renzu, sounded familiar. So, he was the son of Yun Qinghong, about whom malicious rumors claimed he had been adopted because he was unable to awaken the profound handle, the unique and innate ability of the Yun clan. She felt an uncontrollable urge to slap the face of whoever spread such nonsense. "Useless?" she scoffed in her heart. Who in their right mind would call someone useless who defeated a monarch before even reaching 30? Such blindness. Well, if he was Yun Qinghong's son, She couldn't simply kill him. It definitely wasn't because of that smile that left her mind blank and softened her soul. To her, Yun Qinghong was one of the rare patriarchs who truly supported and respected her. He was one of the few who never showed any intention of taking advantage of the temporary weakness of the illusory demon imperial family after the demon emperor's death. Furthermore, the young man's grandfather, the former patriarch of the Yun family, was recognized as the second most powerful in terms of profound strength in the entire illusory demon realm. It was he who led the Yun family and commanded the 12 guardian families, whose duty was to protect the ruler of the illusory demon realm, the demon emperor. For his loyalty and services, he was granted the title of Demon King, becoming one of the emperor's closest and most trusted allies. In other words, the Yun family was and always had been one of the most loyal supporters of her imperial lineage. But the man before her was different. He might have the same blood, perhaps, but the attitude. After a few moments of silence, she finally said, "I've heard some rumors about you. I'm surprised that someone supposedly useless managed not only to defeat this empress but also to seal my cultivation." "Ah, those rumors?" Renzu showed no change in expression as he spoke indifferently. "I've learned that there's no tool more useful than the ignorance of others. It's much better to be underestimated. While they believe I'm incapable, I walk freely. While they judge me as useless, I don't need to prove anything." After saying this, Renzu glanced at the low table in the corner of the cabin, where a ceramic teapot rested beside 2 cups. Without saying another word, he walked over with calm steps, as if the weight of the world couldn't affect him. "You know," he said, while pouring the tea with calm, fluid movements, "I've been quite rude so far. To receive a guest, even one as murderous as you, and not offer even a cup of tea." The steam rose in faint spirals from the cup as he picked it up, enveloping his fingers in a delicate dance of warmth and fragrance. And then he walked toward her. Those simple, ordinary words shouldn't have had the slightest impact on someone like her. She was the little demon empress, the woman who didn't bow even before the heavens. Mundane words meant nothing to her. But then he smiled. A smile born of genuine, pure kindness, devoid of ulterior motives. And in that instant, the little demon empress's world turned upside down. Ah! It was as if the entire scene around her had crumbled. The cabin, the cold breeze coming through the window, even the bed beneath her body. Everything vanished. There was no longer sky or earth. There was no longer the illusory demon realm. There was no longer an empress. There was only that smile. And, for some reason she couldn't explain, that was enough to destroy everything she thought she knew about herself. Her lungs forgot how to breathe. Her heart pounded in her chest as if it wanted to break her ribs. Her mind went blank again. An invisible short-circuit ran through her thoughts. Pride, dignity, anger, caution, all gone, like dry leaves carried away by a gentle breeze. She forgot where she was, forgot who she was, forgot she wanted to kill this man for seeing her naked body, forgot even how her own body worked. She just stared. Renzu stopped in front of her and extended the cup, his eyes maintaining contact with hers. The deep darkness of his irises seemed to hold an ocean that pulled at her soul. And she, an empress who had faced wars, betrayals, centuries of loneliness and pain, for the first time in her life, felt utterly intoxicated by the beauty of the immortal before her eyes. Her fingers moved before her mind could process the action. As if responding to an order that was never given, the little demon empress's delicate fingers touched the extended cup. The warm porcelain brushed against her skin, sending a slight shiver up her arm, but she didn't pull back. Unconsciously, she accepted the tea. She didn't even notice that she had leaned slightly forward, as if the gesture were something natural, inevitable. Renzu said nothing. He merely released the cup gently and turned, walking slowly to the chair by the table. He sat with the elegance of a king, crossing his legs casually, as if that simple gesture was enough to define the space around him as an invisible throne. And then he looked at her. "Drink. This tea will help with fatigue and speed up the healing of your wounds." The little demon empress looked at the young man with an emotionless expression, but a complicated glint appeared in her pupils before she calmly brought the cup to her lips. One sip, the warm liquid slid down her throat, and instantly, she felt a comforting energy spread through her limbs. It was like an invisible blanket enveloping her body from within, gradually easing the stiffness, as if each cell were remembering what it was like to live without pain. Her eyes widened slightly, surprised by the effectiveness. It was real. "You didn't lie," she said, her voice slightly softer but still with her pride intact. "I rarely lie," Renzu replied with a faint smile. She didn't know it at the time, but it was in that moment that her life would change forever. /N, author's note. If you thought the little demon empress lowered her guard too quickly, it's worth remembering a few key points. Her reaction upon discovering that Renzu is the son of Yun Qinghong and grandson of the former Demon King, one of the most loyal allies of her late father, the Demon Emperor, mirrors Yun Che's in the original canon when she realizes the young man who had crossed her boundaries was, in fact, someone carrying the blood of those who always protected her imperial lineage with honor. However, that wasn't the decisive factor. Renzu is simply too beautiful. Not in a normal way. His charm is off the charts. He's an existence like Senior White, that kind of beauty that transcends gender, identity, or morality. Men, women, profound beasts, trees, maybe even the laws of physics, all falter before his smile. The little demon empress didn't fall head over heels for him in this moment. She still holds her pride, still detests him a little, and still wants to throw him into the depths of an abyss from time to time. But as the days pass, it will become inevitable. After all, how can one resist someone who seems to have been drawn by the Tao itself? Get ready. Her heart will beat much faster, and maybe yours will too. Also, if you want to read up to 10 advanced chapters of the story and support the project, check out my Patreon. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next chapter. 15. Chapter 15 Insurrection. 3. The cup rested gently between the pale, jade-like fingers of the little demon empress. The steam still rose slowly from the amber surface of the tea, tracing spirals in the cold air as if they were fleeting thoughts she herself was trying to avoid. Her black eyes, deep as abysses hidden beneath the night, remained fixed on the liquid that swayed within the porcelain. There was an almost unnatural stiffness in her unmoving shoulders. To any outside observer, it seemed she was searching for some secret in the reflection of the drink. But the truth was, she simply didn't want to face that man's face again. That face, so absurdly perfect. Did she hate him? Perhaps, or perhaps not. Even she wasn't entirely sure. And that infuriated her even more. After losing her father and her husband, who was also her brother, she had grown accustomed to solitude. To become an empress worthy of her title and preserve her position in the illusory demon realm, she had been forced to freeze all her emotions over the past century. She had lost count of how many lives she had taken from those who opposed her ideals. She was relentless with everyone, to the point that most obeyed her out of fear rather than loyalty. That was the only way she found to keep the royal family's position intact. She had spent so much time playing this role that she forgot what it was like to feel anything. She should have been immune to this kind of childish turmoil. It was that man's fault. She hated the way her memory betrayed her every time she looked at him, mentally tracing every inch of his abdomen as if it were a painting that refused to fade. She hated that uncomfortable warmth that bloomed in her chest, crept up her neck, and flushed her ears, as if every cell in her body mocked her self-control. The cup returned to her lips with a slow movement. Lost in thought for a few minutes, the amber liquid no longer released as much steam as before, but the gentle warmth still lingered. It was then that his voice cut through the silence. "The tea, is it good?" She didn't respond. She merely huffed lightly, turning her gaze away as if the question were unworthy of a verbal reply. Renzu smiled in a resigned manner. "I know I've already apologized and also blamed you before for the whole incident that led us here, but I think we just got off on the wrong foot, Your Majesty. I'm sorry for the entire incident," he said after a brief sigh. "It wasn't my intention to cause so much trouble. But, whether you like it or not, you'll need to stay here for at least a week. Until the effect of my attack wears off and your cultivation returns to normal." Silence. She continued staring at the tea, as if it still held secrets to reveal. As if she could ignore that voice and everything it brought. "But, if you want, I can go down the mountain and call someone to take you back to your palace. It's not like I have the right to keep you here." The little demon empress finally raised her eyes. Her face was a mask of unmoving, unperturbed porcelain. Her black eyes, like the deepest abyss, let no spark of emotion escape. Yet, inside, a silent storm consumed her. In these 100 years, it was common knowledge among the citizens of the illusory demon realm that the Yun family had hurriedly gone to the profound sky continent to save the demon emperor, who had clearly sent a message of death. In the end, not only did they fail to save the demon emperor, but they also lost their lives in the profound sky continent, along with the demon emperor's seal. Because of the loss of the seal, the heart of the little demon emperor was filled with sorrow and despair. After getting heavily drunk on his wedding night, on impulse, he headed to the profound sky continent. This was the version everyone in the illusory demon realm knew, making the Yun family an utterly sinful family in the hearts of all the citizens of the illusory demon realm. Severing the demon emperor's lineage, her husband, was a completely unforgivable crime. But she was far from foolish. If she weren't at least minimally intelligent, she wouldn't have discarded her emotions and been ruthless to maintain her position. Who caused the demon emperor's despair? Who forced the little demon emperor to have no choice but to save his father alone? If, at that time, all 12 guardian families had collaborated with the Yun family and entered the profound sky continent as one, even if the former demon emperor still couldn't be saved in the end, how could they have allowed the little demon emperor to feel such despair that he risked going to the profound sky continent alone? The culprits were obviously several of the guardian families at the time. The Helian, Jufeng, Nangong, Qiang, Lin, Xiao, and by families, a bunch of people harboring malicious intentions. Because all this wasn't caused inadvertently, but by the greed and vileness many of them possessed. If it hadn't been just the Yun family heading to the profound sky continent back then, but all 12 families working as one heart and going to the profound sky continent together, what would there have been to fear about the 4 great sacred grounds? It might even have been possible to safely save the demon emperor, and the demon emperor's seal wouldn't have been lost, even the little demon emperor wouldn't have had to die. Knowing all this, how could she return to the palace now? With her cultivation sealed, it wouldn't be a good idea. She would have to stay here, one more week by the side of the man she couldn't entirely hate, but at the same time found irritating because he could stir her heart. 1 week. It seemed so short. It seemed like far too long. There's no need. I'll stay here until I recover. After that, we're even. Forget what you saw at that lake. If you spread any rumors, no matter how strong you are, this empress will rip your head off. Understood. As she spoke, a chilling killing intent instantly appeared in her eyes. Renzu nodded, unsurprised. I understand. He then leaned back in the chair he was sitting in calmly. She observed his silhouette and found his indifference acceptable. She looked at the tea again, now almost cold, and took the last sip with her usual cold elegance. I want another. That was all she said. Renzu let out a sigh and stood up, beginning to prepare another herbal tea to help her recover faster. She watched him in silence. And somewhere within her, something small bloomed. Something faint and quiet, like the first sprout breaking through the snow at the edge of spring. It didn't take more than a few minutes before the young man approached the bed, carefully balancing the new cup between his fingers. The aroma of the freshly infused herbs mingled with the cold breeze entering through the cabin's cracks. Here, he said, extending the cup naturally. The little demon empress said nothing, merely taking the porcelain between her pale, jade-like fingers, as if it were his duty to serve her while handing him the cup she had used before. Renzu took the cup and walked back to the chair, settling in without haste, gazing for a few seconds at the steam dancing over the drink in her hands. What is it? Her voice was low, calm like the cold glass of a frozen lake. Why are you looking at me like that, Renzu? He blinked slowly, as if waking from a reverie. A faint smile curved his lips. It's just, you truly live up to the title of the #1 beauty in the illusory demon realm. The little demon empress didn't respond immediately. Her black eyes remained fixed on him for a long moment, expressionless. The cup was still between her fingers, the steam rising lazily between them. Despite her icy exterior, her heart was beating faster. Whether due to the compliment that meant more to her than usual or the smile of that immortal before her eyes, now that I think about it, I believe I was a bit foolish not to have guessed it was you from the moment I first saw you. Renzu lamented with the same calm and indifferent expression. Foolish? You're being generous with yourself. Despite her emotionless expression, a certain turmoil appeared in her black eyes as she spoke. Renzu let out a light laugh, unoffended. Perhaps, he admitted with a touch of irony. But, in my defense, who would expect to find the fearsome demon empress, naked, in an isolated lake? She nearly choked on her tea, her eyes narrowing dangerously, and the temperature in the cabin seemed to drop a few degrees. Renzu raised his hands in a pacifying gesture. I know. I'll forget that matter, as difficult as it may be. And just for the record, there was no innuendo. It was merely a geographical and tragic observation, considering the outcome. Tragic. The word escaped her lips with a dry tone. Yes, to be honest, I didn't want to meet you that way. It would have been much better to meet you at some gathering or something like that. He let out a sigh. This empress no longer blames you for that incident, but avoid mentioning it again. Now that I know you're Yun Songhai's grandson, if I harmed you, I wouldn't know how to face him after death, said the little demon empress calmly. Now that you bring it up. Renzu brought his hand to his chin, as if pondering something, and then asked naturally, Little demon empress, do you know what happened 22 years ago? When my father and mother went to the profound sky continent. They never told me anything, but I'm not foolish enough to believe I share the same blood as both of them. Why was he asking that now? There were 2 reasons. The first, to start a conversation with the little demon empress, someone difficult to approach. And the second, more cunning. Later, when confronting his parents, he could say it was she who revealed the truth about his origin. If his suspicions were correct, then it was almost certain she knew, at least according to the original story of this world, she should know. Regarding that matter, this empress can give you answers. But are you sure you want to know the truth? The little demon empress asked slowly, a bit surprised to receive that question out of nowhere. Yes, you're the only person I think must know what happened that year besides my father and mother. I don't want to miss this opportunity, said Renzu calmly. All right, I'll tell you. But only as thanks for the tea, that's right. I don't want to owe you anything. Her eyes were like cold stars, and she said frigidly, at that time, my imperial father and the demon king were both imprisoned in the profound sky continent. Although there were no more messages, we still hadn't seen their bodies. So, this empress was unwilling to fully believe that my imperial father had already passed away, and Patriarch Yoon didn't give up on finding news of the demon king. 100 years ago, from the profound sky continent, they constantly sent scattered messages, saying the demon king wasn't dead and wanted our illusory demon realm to exchange the mirror of samsara for his life. Although a large number of patriarchs and dukes insisted it was a scheme from the profound sky continent, the matter involved the demon king's life, and both this empress and Patriarch Yoon chose to believe rather than not believe. It's known to the entire world that 22 years ago, Patriarch Yoon and his wife secretly went to the profound sky continent, and at that time it was actually under this empress's command. Otherwise, with Patriarch Yoon's loyalty, he definitely wouldn't have taken the mirror of samsara, which he was protecting of his own accord. Although the mirror of samsara was a valued artifact of the demon emperor's lineage, in the end, it was still a lifeless object. If it could truly be used to exchange for the demon king's life, this empress would definitely not have been the least bit unwilling to do such a thing. As for what happened afterward, you must already be aware. The little demon empress coldly shifted her gaze forward. Patriarch Yoon and his wife returned 3 years later with severe injuries. Their profound strength crippled, and they even brought back a son. When Patriarch Yoon came to confess his sin of losing the mirror of samsara, he told this empress everything that happened. At that time, this empress learned that your father and mother indeed had a son in the profound sky continent. But that child wasn't you, the one they brought back. Not long after Patriarch Yoon and his wife had a son in the profound sky continent, they were hunted for a long period. When they were about to reach a dead end, they met a good friend they made in the profound sky continent. Not only did he guide Patriarch Yoon and his wife to an escape route, but he was also afraid that their child would face uncertainties during the escape, and that they would lose their only descendant. So, he swapped his own son with Patriarch Yoon's son. In other words, you are the son of your father's friend, as far as I know, but your parents must never have denied the rumors about you being adopted. So I believe this is within your expectations. After saying everything, the little demon empress looked at him with the same morbid expression as before. I see. That was all Renzu said as he sighed. He then looked at the woman half lying in bed, calmly sipping tea, and asked, so, even if I'm adopted, you still stand by what you said about not harming me because of my grandfather? I believe that even if you're not of the Yoon family's blood, being adopted by his son, Yoon Songhai would still consider you his grandson regardless. So, I still stand by my word. Renzu gave a faint, brief smile that betrayed no deeper emotion. Thank you, little demon empress. With the same calm, he rose from the chair, adjusting the sleeves of his robe, and walked to the door. As he opened it, a gust of cold air entered the cabin, bringing with it the scent of the damp, distant forest. I'll go get some things to prepare dinner, he said without looking back, before disappearing outside. Silence reclaimed the space, heavy but not suffocating. She remained still for a few seconds, her gaze lost in the cup in her hands. The steam was almost gone, but she didn't drink the last sip. Her fingers, so steady, betrayed her for a moment, lightly squeezing the porcelain as if seeking warmth from it. It was irritating how his words still echoed in her mind, even when he was no longer there. Irritating how his voice didn't feel intrusive, but rather close. Her gaze shifted to the half-open door, where a trace of the cold breeze still lingered. And so, the days passed quickly. Also, if you want to read up to 10 advanced chapters of the story and support the project, check out my Patreon. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next chapter. 16. Chapter 16, Insurrection. 4. 3 days had passed since that conversation. The sun hung high above the mountains, its light slowly dissolving the mist that enveloped the valley. Between the slopes, a lake of such clear waters revealed itself, reflecting the clouds like a perfect mirror. At its center, a small island covered in a lush carpet of green grass supported a simple cabin, surrounded by wildflowers. Waterfalls cascaded in silvery threads down the surrounding mountains, spreading a fine mist into the air that danced with the breeze. Pale rainbows appeared and vanished as the light struck the suspended droplets. On the edge of the island, the little demon empress sat on a fallen log, her relaxed posture contrasting with the coldness in her gaze. Her legs were crossed, her black cloak elegantly draping down to touch the grass. Her eyes, dark as a moonless night, stared at Renzu from a distance. They were so impassive they evoked the silent judgment of a god of death. But behind that unyielding mask, a complex emotional storm glimmered in her pupils. In the 3 days that followed, life in the valley remained surprisingly peaceful. She, accustomed to the constant intrigues and obligations of the illusory demon realm, found herself immersed in a simple, almost mundane routine. There were no political disputes, no subjects awaiting orders, no watchful eyes measuring her every word. Only the sound of the waterfalls, the rustle of the wind through the trees, and Renzu. It was ironic. She had spent so much time being the ruthless empress she knew she had to be to honor her royal family. And yet, here, far from everything she knew, she experienced something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Without realizing it, her gaze began to seek him out more often than she cared to admit. She watched him as he trained by the lake, gathered herbs, or prepared tea. There was something in his movements, in his calm and indifferent posture, that chipped away at the carefully constructed walls around her heart. With each day, the ice that surrounded her seemed to melt a little. Not enough for her to openly acknowledge what was happening. She would never admit it, not even to herself, but enough to notice a different kind of restlessness. A subtle warmth, uncomfortable yet somehow pleasant. It was a dangerous feeling. And yet, over the last 3 days, she made no effort to push it away. And now, watching Renzu practice simple martial arts movements shirtless, her cheeks bore a faint blush, almost imperceptible, and her heart pounded so fiercely it seemed to echo in her ears. It wasn't her fault. It was because of that shameless man who liked to show off that perfect body. Renzu's movements reflected in her dark pupils. He advanced calmly, as if every inch of ground beneath his feet had been measured beforehand. The first strike came with a straight, swift punch, the air before him splitting with a muffled sound. His fist didn't extend too far, retracting instantly to give way to a fluid sequence of short kicks. Suddenly, the rhythm changed. His body spun, his weight shifting from heels to toes. A brief but explosive leap propelled him forward, his raised knee transforming into a descending kick that struck the air with precision. The moment he touched the ground, Renzu was already crouched, his hand brushing the grass before launching him sideways in a low, swift movement, as if dodging an invisible attack. He didn't stop. His upright posture dissolved into circular motions, his arms tracing unpredictable paths, serving to parry or strike. At one moment, he was firm and solid as stone, at another, flexible and slippery as water. The contrast was so natural it seemed part of his breathing. The sun, reflecting off the lake, outlined every contour of his body, the glint of sweat running down his tense muscles. The little demon empress felt the world around her fade, leaving only that constant motion, and him. On the other hand, noticing the emotional turmoil in the little demon empress with a sidelong glance, Renzu let a faint curve of his lips slip. Over the last 3 days, he hadn't done anything extraordinary. Just treated her as he would any ordinary person, not as an empress. He had tried to approach her gradually, even calling her by her name, Huan Tsai or simply Tsai for short. At first, this earned him glares cold enough to send shivers down his spine. But over time, they softened. She also stopped calling him shameless, irritating, or other usual insults, referring to him simply as Renzu, which, for him, was the greatest progress achieved in these past days. Well, it was time to start the second part of his plan. He was already moving the pieces for it, in fact. Renzu finished the final sequence with a swift spin, his right foot landing firmly on the grass. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling slowly. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, he let a thin layer of blood-red flames envelop his body. They spread like a rippling veil, consuming and evaporating every drop of sweat until his skin was completely dry. Unhurried, he took a few steps toward the lake. The water, which would resist anyone else, seemed to treat him as part of it. His feet sank just enough to create gentle ripples, never wetting him above the ankles. The sunlight reflected off the liquid mirror, painting his walk with golden and crimson glimmers. When he was a few meters from the island, he raised his gaze to her and asked in his usual calm tone, "Sorry for making you wait again. I have to keep up the routine to stay sharp. You must be hungry, right, Tsai?" The little demon empress immediately averted her gaze, the blush on her cheeks almost imperceptible. She straightened her posture on the fallen log and responded in a cold tone, with a slight stumble in her voice. Humph. Me? Don't be ridiculous. Why would I be hungry? Her reply was as sharp as ever, but the truth was her stomach was starting to protest. She still remembered the first time, driven only by curiosity and the irresistible aroma that filled the air. She tried something Renzu had prepared. One spoonful was enough to realize he could easily be revered as a god of cooking. The spices, the balance of flavors, the perfect texture, even the colors of the dish seemed more vibrant. It was so good that, for a moment, she seriously considered the possibility of, if she ever brought him to the illusory Demon Realm's palace, appointing him her personal chef. But admit that out loud? Never. Renzu tilted his head slightly to the side, letting a barely perceptible smile appear before quickly replacing it with a regretful expression, as if genuinely embarrassed. Ah, of course. My mistake, he said in an almost sorrowful tone, letting out a dramatic sigh. For an empress who rules an entire continent, eating with me must surely be beneath you. And my food, of course, must not come close to the refined palate of your majesty. I feel guilty for making you eat such rubbish these past 3 days. He paused, maintaining a look of feigned resignation, then clasped his hands together, bowing slightly in a respectful gesture. In that case, if your majesty doesn't wish to eat, I fear I'll have to offend you. I'll prepare something for myself. Without waiting for a response, he turned on his heels and began walking calmly toward the cabin. The sound of his footsteps on the grass mingled with the distant murmur of the waterfalls, as if the entire valley accompanied his movement. He was a few meters from entering when her calmly cold voice cut through the air. Wait! Renzu stopped, turning only his face to look at her. The little demon empress gazed at him with her usual impassive expression, hard to decipher. As you are my loyal subject, she began calmly, without the slightest trace of emotion. And as the benevolent empress that I am, I obviously wouldn't let you eat alone. There was no warmth in her words, nor any visible trace of embarrassment. It was as if she were simply stating a logical and inevitable fact. Renzu didn't comment, merely nodded and spoke calmly. In that case, I'll have to prepare something worthy of your majesty. He headed to the cabin, and she followed a few steps behind, maintaining her cold demeanor but with her gaze fixed on the way he opened the door and began organizing everything. The interior of the so-called kitchen was simple. A low wooden table, a few well-maintained wooden utensils, ceramic jars containing spices and grains. The faint aroma of dried herbs lingered in the air. Renzu began working unhurriedly, choosing ingredients like an artist selecting paints for a masterpiece. He chopped herbs with quick, even strokes, washed vegetables in the crystal-clear water brought from the lake, and placed a small iron pot he had made over the fire. In truth, this entire cabin was something he had built over the past months of isolation to distract his procrastinating mind. Carving things from wood and refining items was quite easy to do. The soft sound of heating oil spread through the space, followed by a rhythmic sizzling as the ingredients touched the hot surface. A rich, enveloping fragrance began to fill the cabin, escaping through the cracks and reaching the open air. The little demon empress kept her arms crossed, seated at one of the table's chairs, her chin slightly raised, as if the aroma had no effect on her. Inwardly, however, every second was a battle. The scent was so good it brought back memories of the first dish he had prepared for her days ago. Renzu stirred the pot with calm movements, adding liquids and spices that released new layers of fragrance. He didn't need to look at her to know that, despite her impassive expression, her eyes followed his every move, as if trying to decipher what he was doing to create something so appetizing. The secret? Nothing mystical or divine, just knowledge of every herb in existence, combined with culinary experience from the modern world. Added to that 8 months of isolation, during which he cooked for himself 3 times a day, like any single man living alone and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. That simple but consistent routine had refined his culinary skills to the point where he considered himself unmatched in this world. When he finally turned off the fire, he placed the dish in front of her first, without saying a word. He merely maintained a faint smile and served himself afterward. She looked at the meal, then at him and said in a cold tone, as if it were a magnanimous gesture, "Very well, as an empress. I must taste it to ensure it's not unworthy." But the moment she took the first bite, the tips of her fingers relaxed, and a subtle glint crossed her eyes before it was extinguished by her mask of indifference. Renzu observed her out of the corner of his eye. "So? Is it acceptable for someone of your majesty's level?" Huan Cai set down her utensils calmly and responded without emotion. "Humph. It's not bad. It's tolerable." He raised an eyebrow, holding back a laugh. "Ah, I see. So, if I try harder, maybe I can reach the standard of edible for the empress. Don't delude yourself. I'm only preventing you from dying of disappointment with your own cooking." "How benevolent." he murmured, shaking his head with feigned gratitude. It's comforting to know your majesty cares so much for me. She averted her gaze, her chin raised, but a slight twitch at the corner of her lips betrayed her urge to say something more. The sound of utensils and the warm aroma of the meal filled the space. Between bites, Renzu let slip, "You know, if you keep eating like this every day, you might have to admit you enjoy it." One thing he had noticed over these 3 days was that he needed to take the initiative to talk to the little demon empress to get closer to her. She wasn't the type to speak much. "Don't be presumptuous. I just don't waste food." "Of course," he replied, serving her more before she could refuse. "Just don't waste it, then." The rest of the meal passed in silence, interrupted only by the clinking of utensils and the distant rustle of the wind passing through the valley's trees. The sunlight filtered through the cabin's cracks, painting golden stripes across the wooden floor and table. After collecting the dishes and washing everything with his usual methodical calm, Renzu stepped out through the side door, heading toward the lake to cool off. The little demon empress, pretending not to pay attention, followed his every movement with the corner of her eye. Time passed slowly until, as the sun began to sink toward the horizon, the cabin door opened again. Renzu entered, no longer shirtless but wearing a complete set of pristine white Taoist robes, impeccably clean, with long sleeves and a simple belt tied at the waist. The little demon empress raised an eyebrow, a shadow of irony crossing her emotionless face. "Oh, so the shameless one finally decided to dress?" Her voice was cutting, but there was an almost imperceptible note of relief hidden within. "I was beginning to think you didn't even own a decent change of clothes." Renzu stopped in the middle of the room, looking at her with genuine confusion, as if he didn't understand the jab. He tilted his head slightly. "You mean earlier, when I was training?" She narrowed her eyes, the corner of her lips threatening an ironic smile. "Training, walking around the island, talking, practically the entire day shirtless. A complete lack of decency, to say the least." Renzu blinked once, then responded with the calm of someone stating the obvious. "I just don't see a reason to feel ashamed of something so natural. Between friends, there's no need to hide the body." The words, spoken so simply and unpretentiously, seemed to ricochet in her mind. The little demon empress was momentarily speechless, surprised by the naturalness and innocence of the statement. He didn't seem to be teasing or insinuating anything. He was just sincere, as if that kind of closeness was the most normal thing in the world for him. She quickly averted her gaze, adjusting her posture to mask the brief moment of hesitation. "Humph, friends. Huh? Idiot," she murmured, almost to herself, as if testing the word in her own mouth. Renzu, however, was already adjusting the sash at his waist, completely oblivious to the weight his words had carried for her. "Yes, friendship is rare, especially for someone surrounded by enemies. It's nice when we don't have to wear masks all the time." For a moment, she found no response. The orange light of the sunset streamed through the window, illuminating the pure white of his robes and the calm gaze that met hers. And, for the first time since they arrived in that valley, the little demon empress averted her eyes not out of disdain or pride, but because she didn't know how to face what she was feeling. After preparing dinner as he had done the past few days while the little demon empress watched and occasionally commented, they ate and spent some time in silence. Night fell gently over the roof, painting the sky a deep blue speckled with stars. The glow of the night bathed the cabin. Renzu served tea with calm movements, the steam rising slowly from the cups. "You're doing perfectly fine," he said, his voice neutral but with a hint of satisfaction. "Must be thanks to the teas you've been drinking." The little demon empress stared at him, unblinking, with no apparent emotion. Was all she replied. The silence stretched between them, only the soft sound of the wind and the occasional clink of porcelain as he set the teapot on the makeshift table. Renzu raised his eyes to the sky, took a deep breath, and spoke, almost as if thinking aloud. "These 3 days have been really good." There was no pretense in his voice. He genuinely felt it. Despite her arrogant, ruthless, and cold personality, something in him noticed small cracks in that mask. Living alongside her, even in such an unusual setting, had been peaceful. The little demon empress averted her eyes for a moment but couldn't ignore the warmth rising to her face. Her heart, which always seemed indifferent, beat a little faster. His words, and that face, softly illuminated by the faint moonlight, it was so unfair. Renzu then turned his gaze to her, his lips curving into a faint smile. "Can I ask you some things?" "What kind of things?" She slightly furrowed her brow, as if already sensing his intention. "Things about you," he replied without hesitation. "After 3 days living together in this cabin, I realized I know nothing about the little demon empress." "And why do you want to know?" She shot back, trying to hide her slight discomfort. Because I want to know you, he said simply. No irony, no provocation, just sincerity. Not the imposing figure everyone fears, but the woman sitting here now, having tea with me. He propped his chin on his hand, watching her closely. So, what was your favorite place as a child? Do you prefer cold or warm days? What's the first flavor you remember loving? With each question, she seemed to falter, as if an inner wall was being carefully touched. She leaned back slightly, crossing her arms. Humph, pointless questions. I see no sense in this. Renzu merely took a sip of tea and waited, as if her lack of response wasn't an obstacle. The silence grew uncomfortable for her, and she averted her gaze to the starry sky visible through the cabin's window. The plum blossom garden at the palace, she murmured suddenly, as if it were unimportant. When they bloomed, the wind carried white petals. Renzu smiled faintly. So, you prefer cold days? She hesitated for a second. No, I like spring. It's not too hot, nor too cold, she replied, almost without realizing she was giving another answer. And the first flavor you loved? He pressed, still in that calm, almost casual tone. She frowned, but her lips moved before she could stop them. Flaming lotus tea. My father used to make it when I was little. She paused briefly, realizing she had revealed more than she intended. Not that it matters to you. Renzu merely watched her for a few seconds, a soft glint in his eyes. It matters to me. Every piece of your story matters if I want to truly know you. She turned her face away, as if wanting to end the conversation, but her breathing was slightly uneven. Something about that calm persistence, without pressure but full of genuine interest, disarmed defenses she had always believed unshakable. Renzu set his cup on the table and added, 3 days together, and I've already noticed that, behind that coldness, there's someone who feels more than they want to admit. We may have started off on the wrong foot, but that doesn't define our whole story. We started on the wrong foot, and here we are, aren't we? She shot him a sharp look but found no words to retort. As much as she wanted to deny it, her racing heart betrayed her. Renzu kept his tone calm, almost carefree. Is there any music you like? He asked, lightly stirring the tea in his cup. She raised an eyebrow. Music is irrelevant, she replied quickly, but after a few seconds, added in a lower voice, there was a song I heard as a child. It's my favorite. He gave a brief nod, as if mentally storing the information. Though I'm curious to hear such music, I know you're not ready to share it with me. So, what was your childhood dream? She straightened, as if the question were intrusive. To become the strongest person who ever lived, she said without hesitation, but then, as if against her own will, added, so no one could take anything from me. Even now, that dream remains the same, but for different reasons. Renzu sensed the weight in those last words but didn't press. He merely nodded seriously and shifted to a lighter tone. What's your favorite food? She closed her eyes for a moment, seeming unwilling to answer, but the memory came anyway. Sweet baked bread, filled with cream, and she immediately averted her gaze, as if regretting having revealed it. He gave an almost imperceptible smile. So, flaming lotus tea and sweet bread. I think I know what to make for you one day. No need, she retorted quickly, though the subtle blush on her cheeks betrayed her. The hours continued like this. Simple questions, reluctant answers, and small cracks opening in the wall she had built her entire life. They talked about favorite colors, places they'd like to visit, scents that brought back good memories. She realized, between one sip and another, that she was sharing things she hadn't even told those close to her in the past. Renzu, for his part, didn't take advantage of it. He simply listened with genuine attention, reacting naturally, as if each detail were a small treasure he wanted to keep. When she noticed, the moon was already high, and the breeze cooler. More than 3 hours had passed since he started asking questions. The little demon empress, now without the deep energy from before, felt the weight of fatigue settling in. Her sealed cultivation had made her as mortal as anyone else, so that night, sleep came unexpectedly, silently, almost gently, and, for the first time in a long time, she didn't consider it an enemy. Not that she had fully considered him an enemy before, but somehow it felt different. It was a comforting warmth that embraced her. The steam from the tea had already dissipated, and the cool breeze caressed her skin, carrying the distant scent of nocturnal flowers. The little demon empress blinked more slowly, as if each blink was harder to reopen her eyes. The moonlight partially illuminated her face, softening her cold features. Gradually, her breathing slowed, her long lashes trembling one last time before stilling. She fell asleep with her arms crossed on the table. Renzu remained still for a moment, just watching. Was the sight before him something only he had witnessed? The Empress feared by all. Now asleep, there was no arrogance, no coldness, no shadow of the absolute authority that surrounded her. Just a girl, with simple fatigue and a serene expression. It was ironic. On the first night they spent together in the cabin, he slept on the floor, and she on the bed, obviously, though she hadn't slept fully and kept one eye on him. Fearing he might do something, after 3 days he had earned her trust. Careful not to wake her, he moved the teapot and cups aside. He pulled a light cloak that was folded nearby and placed it over her shoulders. The edges of the fabric fell to her lap, and she instinctively curled slightly under its warmth. Renzu leaned back, gazing at the starry sky for a few moments before turning his eyes back to her. An almost imperceptible smile curved his lips as he used his fire manipulation to warm the cabin, as he had done the past few days. Though snow didn't reach this valley, it was strangely cold, and he didn't want her to get sick. "Good night," he murmured, knowing she wouldn't hear. /N. It was incredibly enjoyable to write the development between Renzu and the little demon empress. I believe I managed to capture both of their personalities quite well. I hope you felt that connection as much as I did while writing it. Thought Balloon. And you? What did you think of this interaction? I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Also, if you want to read up to 10 advanced chapters of the story and support the project, check out my Patreon. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next chapter. 17. Chapter 17 Level Up. Great Joe Mountain, at a waterfall among the peaks. On the mountain's walls, which stood about 200 to 300 meters high, a massive waterfall cascaded down into the pool below, raising a mist. The deafening roar was immense, like the rumble of thunder traveling far into the distance. At the edge of the waterfall, a young man, barefoot and shirtless, was currently walking step by step toward the curtain of water that seemed to fall from the heavens. All his profound energy was being unleashed without reservation, protecting his head and back. His figure seemed especially small beneath that colossal curtain of water. Though the height of this waterfall wasn't absurdly extreme, the force of the falling water was still enough to easily crush a body to pieces. Yet the young man continued without a care, walking toward the massive rock that the waterfall had been striking for who knows how many years. He calmly sat cross-legged upon it. The water plummeted violently, hammering his body like relentless blows. Still, Renzu remained motionless, seated cross-legged on the smooth, wet rock. The little demon empress watched him from where she sat on one of the rocks surrounding the waterfall. Her eyes reflected complex emotions. She hated to admit it, but she felt worried about this infuriating man who, in just a few days, had pierced her heart and melted the ice she had carried for decades. Since the loss of her father and her husband, who was also her brother, she had taken her position with a single vow, to live only for the honor of her family. Yet here she was, harboring feelings for someone she'd known for less than a week. Even knowing he was extraordinarily strong, far stronger than she was, she couldn't help but feel this kind of concern. An even more complex look appeared behind her emotionless eyes as she recalled the past 4 days. During that time, Renzu had taken seriously the goal of getting to know her, and to her surprise, she had begun asking him questions, driven by an unexpected curiosity. She wanted to know about the sword art he had used, to which he replied he had created it himself. She also asked about his absurdly strong body, how he concealed his cultivation, and finally what exactly his cultivation level was. Well, it wasn't just questions about cultivation, but that, of course, was the most important. For instance, at that moment, he was about to attempt breaking through to the next level of his profound art, and that was exactly why she was there. She wanted to observe the process purely out of curiosity. Yes, just curiosity. It had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he was shirtless, displaying that perfect physique, or with any trace of concern in her heart over him doing something as insane as positioning himself under a waterfall without using even a shred of profound energy to protect himself. Be that as it may, it only made it clearer how absurd the power of his body was. More than anything else, what truly unsettled her was her reluctance to accept that soon all of this would come to an end. Spending a week living simply, alongside someone, without responsibilities, without worries, far from the weight of her title. It had brought her a peace she didn't want to lose. Meeting Renzu had been the best thing to happen to her in decades. But she knew that once she recovered her cultivation, this brief respite would inevitably end. Deep down, even she couldn't fully understand the whirlwind of emotions consuming her. She knew she would miss watching him train, hearing the rhythmic sound of his strikes echoing through the waterfall. She would also miss the quiet conversations they had at night while sharing a cup of tea, and even the strange games he had invented just to distract her, which, against all her expectations, had become moments she would cherish, but that was it. No matter how much she wished, she couldn't stay there. There were too many responsibilities waiting, too many matters demanding her attention, things she couldn't escape. On the other hand, Renzu raised his gaze and, through the droplets of the waterfall, caught sight of Huan Cai's silhouette in the distance, noticing the complex glint in her eyes. Over the past 4 days, he had made an effort to get to know her better and, to his own surprise, found himself growing more and more enamored. Women from worlds where strength defines everything seemed, in a way, more feminine than most in the modern world. It would be impossible for any man not to be charmed by someone like her, especially when that someone was a true tsundere. Well, putting that aside, this was the day the next phase of his plan would finally begin. Everything was prepared, only one final step remained. He had no intention of putting his life at risk, so he planned to open one of the 8 inner gates to further elevate his strength and, with it, reach the sky profound realm. From marrow refinement to the 8 hidden inner gates, this was equivalent to a major breakthrough in realms. There was a nearly insurmountable gap between the two. He let out a soft sigh and retrieved 2 small pills from his pants, prepared in advance for when he would cross this great realm in body transformation. One red, glowing like the purest magma, and one blue, so cold and translucent it resembled eternal ice. Without hesitation, he placed both in his mouth and swallowed them in one go. The impact was immediate. It was as if he had swallowed molten magma while simultaneously ingesting a fragment of ice frozen for 10,000 years in the vacuum of space. The searing heat and absolute cold collided in his stomach, roaring like 2 ancient dragons that could never coexist. His veins lit up beneath his skin, thin red and blue lines intertwining in chaotic patterns, spreading across his torso, arms, and back. But instead of letting both forces tear him apart from within, Renzu guided them with an impossible calm, directing the flow to his clavicle, where the gate of healing lay hidden. As the red and blue energies merged, it was like a frenzied flood dragon, crashing wildly into the gate of healing. Pong! Between his clavicles, an internal explosion spread. A horrific pain struck Renzu, his vision darkening for a moment, and his entire body faltered. The energy flow surged. Along the gate of healing, a devastating change was occurring. It was as if the gate were being torn apart from within. Invisible cracks echoed through the meridian, each one seeming to pierce his mind. The blood in his veins surged so fast it produced a bubbling sound, as if it were boiling. KGH! Renzu gritted his teeth. The skin at his clavicle trembled as if it were about to explode. Suddenly, the final barrier gave way. The gate of healing opened with a muffled boom that only he could feel. The gate of healing had been successfully opened. This also meant that Renzu had finally entered the realm of body strengthening. The 8 hidden inner gates. The pain that had struck him earlier vanished instantly, and he could feel the profound energy of heaven and earth flooding into his clavicles. It was as if a hole had opened within the gate of healing, creating a massive whirlpool of profound energy. Not only that, but the gate of healing could independently filter the profound energy of heaven and earth, making it even purer. Once the gate of healing was opened, a martial artist's body gained the ability to constantly absorb the profound energy of heaven and earth on its own. The benefits for cultivation were obvious. During a battle, it was possible to restore profound energy at an extremely rapid rate. This was equivalent to constantly consuming pills. Not only that, but the energy provided by the gate of healing was incomparably pure, free of the toxins found in pills. Moreover, his recovery and regeneration abilities had greatly increased. He felt he could recover from severe injuries in just a few minutes, and based on the knowledge he had from others who had reached this stage, according to the novel Martial World, he knew this feeling was no illusion, it was the absolute truth. Most importantly, he realized all his physical attributes had made a colossal leap, reaching an entirely new level. His strength now reached 400,000 kilograms, a terrifying number compared to the 100,000 before. He could measure this value precisely thanks to the information from the Heavenly Tyrant Manual etched in his mind. Even without that reference, he would have been able to estimate the result due to his intimate familiarity with his own body. Though he allowed himself only a second to absorb the sensation of breaking through that bottleneck in body training, he quickly snapped out of the pause. The remaining energy from the pills was directed to his profound veins, where it would be refined under his control. This time, he operated his cultivation method while delving into the profound truths of the law of light, rapidly advancing toward the 4th layer of the 10 extreme Taos. Light is the complete opposite of darkness. Sacred, dedicated solely to creation and salvation, never to killing or destruction. It has the power to purify the mind and soul, eliminating all contamination and malice. Though the laws of light are, in theory, the easiest to control, their cultivation demands the strictest requirements. One must possess a sacred body or a pure heart, entirely free of corruption or contamination. In his case, thanks to the legacy received from the goddess of life creation, he became capable of cultivating light. Combined with his extraordinary cultivation method, he quickly reached a level of understanding equivalent to hers, able to manipulate the element of light in multiple applications. It took no more than half an hour to fully refine the remaining energy from the pills. Bang! A chaotic cyclone suddenly erupted, and at the same time, a red-blue radiance, like a resplendent star, shone from within his profound veins. Consequently, waves of an incomparably dense, profound aura surged from the depths of his profound veins, rushing rapidly to every tendon in his body like a flood. His profound veins began to stretch rapidly, his meridians contracting and expanding under the excess of profound aura, as if dancing with excitement. At that moment, a small, dark purple aura emanated from his body, like a flowing broth, its density far greater than before by who knows how many times. The red-blue radiance within his profound veins reflected off each other, becoming even brighter. He felt his profound veins, profound aura, body, and consciousness transform as his heart overflowed with immense surprise. As he breathed, his perception of the entire world had distinctly changed. Level breakthrough. A breakthrough from the earth profound realm to the sky profound realm. He could clearly feel that his profound energy had multiplied countless times. If before it was just a small stream, now it had transformed into a vast lake. Most importantly, by reaching this new level, he eliminated the only weakness that limited his true strength. Before, he could only fly by relying on a sword. Now, he could soar through the skies using his own profound energy. Those who reach this realm awaken the profound floating technique, allowing them to fly freely through the skies without any restrictions. However, each advancement within the sky profound realm is as arduous as ascending to the heavens themselves. The time and effort required far surpass what's needed to progress through 10 entire levels of the spirit profound realm. Moreover, the difference between the lower and upper halves of the sky profound realm is like the distance between two distinct worlds. But he wasn't concerned with those standards. The moment his profound energy stabilized at the first level of the sky profound realm, something else blossomed within him. The law of light, which had been incomplete until then, reached an absolute level. He became completely immune to this element and capable of subjugating it with a mere thought. Thus, without hesitation, Renzu turned his attention to the fourth Tao, darkness. Darkness manifests when negative emotions like hatred, resentment, or despair reach an extreme limit. In this state, the law distorts and profound energy undergoes a mutation, giving rise to diabolical energy. This form of energy is more powerful than ordinary profound energy of the same level but is also far more difficult to control. As it can only arise from intense negative emotions, diabolical energy corrupts the mind and beliefs of those who cultivate it, turning them into beings with distorted thoughts and perverse natures. Many come to be seen as creatures that shouldn't exist in this world, true demons or devils. Dark energy not only amplifies its wielders' negative emotions, but can also alter their mental state and even distort their personality. This happens because humans, by nature, are not compatible with dark profound energy. Only the demon race was born with this affinity. Thus, all cultivators and creatures using diabolical energy in the current era inevitably suffer its destructive effects unless they somehow achieve perfect compatibility with darkness. A requirement he easily met with his unparalleled talent. But even such talent was subject to a rule. Technically, it was impossible to cultivate both light profound energy and dark profound energy simultaneously, as they are absolute opposites. One represents life, the other death. For any ordinary cultivator, attempting to reconcile these two forces would be akin to seeking self-destruction. However, this universal rule didn't apply to him. Thanks to his cultivation technique, he could harbor both light and darkness in his body. Of course, he wasn't exactly unique. If someone inherited the legacy of the evil god, for example, they could also cultivate these opposing elements, and perhaps there were other hidden methods across the vast world. Thus, it wasn't absolutely impossible, it was possible, but it was a feat so heaven-defying that those capable of achieving it could be counted on one hand. The difference lay in the result. None of them could accomplish such a feat with the same perfection as he did. Time passed slowly. 1 hour later, Renzu opened his eyes. The meditation had come to an end. He turned his perception inward and immediately noticed the transformation. His profound veins now glowed in 5 distinct hues: red, purple, green, gold, and a black so deep it was almost imperceptible. More than the colors, what truly impressed him was the vastness of the energy he now possessed. An unshakable confidence surged in his heart. In this world, below the divine profound realm, he was certain. He was invincible. If he had any doubts before, now he had none. Renzu lingered under the torrent of the waterfall for a few more moments, letting the water wash away the sweat and residual energy from the profound pills. The pressure of the falling water was something he had chosen to keep himself aware of the world around him while cultivating. Any distraction could jeopardize the second phase of his plan, and he couldn't afford that luxury. With a smooth motion, he stood, water streaming down his muscular body. His spiritual sense still scanned the surroundings. A few meters away, Huan Cai remained seated, arms crossed, her expression one of boredom. He walked slowly toward her, crossing the curtain of water and the pool it fell into with calm steps. Sorry for the wait, Cai. Humph. How did it go? Did you break through? I really have no idea what your cultivation level is. Even after breaking through, there was no phenomenon beyond the profound energy being drawn toward you from dozens of kilometers away. Not that I could sense it that well. Huan Cai no longer minded him calling her by name. She spoke calmly. Your profound art is so impressive that even my spiritual sense was dulled. You'll recover your profound energy soon, Cai, Renzu said with a faint smile. Instantly, his body was covered by a white robe, looking untainted by even a speck of dust. His skin was as white as snow, his eyes shone like stars, and his long dark hair reached his waist. He truly resembled an immortal gracing mortals with his presence. After dressing, he continued in a melancholic tone. And then we'll rarely see each other again, maybe only at some official meeting about politics, if I'm still around. What do you mean, if I'm still around? The little demon empress asked, her delicate brows furrowing as her heart beat faster. My dream is to become the strongest practitioner there is, and to do that, I have to pursue the path beyond the divine profound realm. So, in the near future, I might not be in the illusory demon realm or even the profound sky continent anymore. You won't find me anywhere in this world, Renzu said, shaking his head. He looked up at the sky and continued, maybe I'll be up there. His words struck Huan Cai's heart like muffled thunder, though her expression remained as emotionless as ever. She stayed silent, but within her, the turmoil was devastating. Was he really going to leave? That simple realization sent a pang of dread through her, a feeling that hadn't gripped her since childhood. Her entire life had been shaped by loss until all that remained was the empress ruling an empire marked by blood and sacrifice. She had sworn never to rely on anyone again. She had sworn never to let anyone into her heart. And yet, in less than a week, this insufferable man had shattered every layer of ice she had built with such effort. He didn't just irritate her, he made her smile against her will. He didn't just challenge her, he made her feel alive. And now he was saying that, sooner or later, he would vanish from the world they both shared. An uncomfortable heat surged through her chest, as if she were suffocating. Part of her wanted to stand, face him, and yell at him not to dare leave. She wanted to accuse him of being irresponsible, of toying with her by opening a space in her heart only to leave her alone. But the other part, the one that had always guided her as an empress, coldly reminded her of her position. She was the little demon empress. She couldn't show weakness, not even to him. So, she kept her arms crossed and slightly averted her gaze, as if it didn't matter to her. So you really dream that big? She said, her voice calm but hiding a trace of bitterness. It's not enough to be the strongest in this world. You want to challenge the heavens themselves. For a moment, her eyes flickered with a faint spark, revealing the conflict she hid. Fear, desire, pride, and a premature longing. She didn't want Renzu to leave. Selfishly, she wanted more days like these. She wanted to keep hearing his laugh, even if it was infuriating. She wanted more nights of conversation. But as an empress, all she could do was bury that desire deep in her soul and accept the approaching distance. Still, as she glanced at him, she noticed her lips almost trembling. And then, in a whisper too soft for him to hear, she murmured to herself, "If you really leave, I don't know if I'll ever forgive you." Pretending not to hear, Renzu gave a faint smile and said, "Of course, I'll still come visit you when I return to see my family. Humph. If you reach that level of strength, this empress will demand your help, so it's obvious you're obligated to visit me." The little demon empress didn't have time to continue when Renzu's calm expression changed drastically. Careful. A beam of light flashed, slicing through the air as if tearing space itself. Its speed was absurd, impossible for any intermediate monarch to react to. A dagger was heading straight for the little demon empress's heart. Her eyes widened in shock. Even with her battle instincts and years of experience, she had no time to move a single finger. Her cultivation was sealed, but before the blade could reach her, a shadow placed itself between her and death. Renzu. His body moved without hesitation, as if he had foreseen the attack from the start. In an instant, he stood in front of her. Poochie. The sharp sound echoed through the valley. The blade pierced his flesh, embedding deeply into his shoulder, inches from his heart. Renzu. The little demon empress stood, her expression finally breaking the cold mask she always wore. Her gaze trembled with pure dread. He let out a low groan but didn't retreat. On the contrary, with the blade still lodged in his body, he took a step forward, shielding her completely with his frame, like a human shield. His broad back faced her, even as blood streamed in crimson rivers down his white robe. He seemed calm. The little demon empress brought a hand to her mouth, her heart racing chaotically. She couldn't stop her voice from trembling. "You idiot. Why did you step in front?" "Because, Sai, from the moment I met you, no matter if you treated me with coldness or disdain, I couldn't stop looking at you. In just a few days you broke every barrier within me. I laughed with you, argued with you, and without realizing it, I started wishing these days would never end." Renzu said with a faint smile on his lips. Her gaze wavered, her pupils dilating. He took another step, even with the blade buried in his flesh, until his shadow completely covered her silhouette. "So when I saw that blade coming for you, I didn't think. I could never let you be hurt." The waterfall roared behind them, but in that moment, the world seemed silent. His words echoed in her heart like thunder. "You're in this situation because I put you here. So, whether it's poison, blades, or even the heavens, I'll always stand between you and anything that threatens to harm you. Because protecting you is the only vow I've made to myself that I'll never break." Her gaze trembled. For the first time in decades, the little demon empress felt tears threatening to surface, but she forcefully swallowed the lump in her throat, clenching her fists. But before she could say anything, two men appeared out of nowhere about 10 meters in front of them, one of them mocking. Well, how touching. Ha 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 ha. I never thought I'd see this kind of scene from someone like you, Huan Sai." The one who spoke was dressed luxuriously. His expression carried the typical arrogance of someone born above others. His eyes radiated haughtiness, as if nothing in this world was worthy of his gaze. "It seems you underestimated the boy with her. When facing someone you need to kill, no matter how weak they are, even if they're like meat under your knife, you shouldn't toy with them. You must eradicate them as quickly as possible. Haven't I taught you that?" The man who spoke was of average height, elegant and handsome, with an extremely pale face. Overall, he looked like a frail scholar, but he emitted an overwhelmingly terrifying pressure from his entire body. Around him, everything was eerily silent, with no signs of flames or lightning. There wasn't even a trace of airflow. His hair and sleeves were completely still, just like his surroundings, where his terrifying aura seemed to have condensed the air around him. He was dressed in a red robe and appeared to be around 30 years old. The little demon empress carefully observed the two men, her expression and gaze shifting, revealing the shock and horror in her heart. Duke Huai and Duke Ming? A/N. Also, if you want to read up to 10 advanced chapters of the story and support the project, check out my Patreon. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next chapter. 18. Chapter 1800-Year Conspiracy. The little demon empress looked at the two men who had abruptly arrived in shock. Duke Huai was someone she was accustomed to seeing at annual meetings, someone who always tried to antagonize her to remove the Yun family from their position as one of the 12 guardian families of her royal family, so it was no surprise to learn that he would try to kill her in this situation. However, she never expected the person accompanying Duke Huai. "Princess Tsai, it's been 150 years. How have you been?" "Oh no, I suppose I should refer to you as Little Demon Empress." He was a person who had disappeared for 150 years without a word. Duke Ming. The little demon empress's chest heaved intensely. For this person to suddenly appear here today, alongside Duke Huai, she wouldn't foolishly believe he was here to take her back to the royal palace. In fact, no one should even know she was in the mountains. "It's been 150 years, but your highness still looks the same." Duke Ming spoke with a slight, gentle smile. If not for the terrifying airflow, anyone who saw that smile would feel it was a warm spring breeze. "What a pity. Although your highness possesses the purest demon emperor bloodline, even if you forcibly seal your vital yin and maintain your body in a state of youthfulness, the sensation of the bloodline devouring your body must be unbearable. It must be difficult for you to endure this all these years. Although the little demon emperor died early, there are many men within the illusory demon realm. You could have found any of them to release your vital yin and lived comfortably for the past 100 years. Ha 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 ha. Duke Ming and Duke Huai both laughed hysterically. Their insulting words shattered any hope within the little demon empress, as she continued to carefully stare at Duke Ming. Staring at this person her father used to trust and value, this person she herself used to greatly respect. In her heart, Her anger was like a volcano erupting wildly. He had come to end her life, an opportunity that would only appear once. But how the hell had both of them discovered her condition? Even if the little demon empress had her suspicions, she had no time to reflect on them, as she was facing two formidable enemies with her cultivation sealed. Her eyes glanced at Renzu's back with concern. Recalling his words about their relationship, Renzu was undoubtedly as strong as she was. But she also clearly knew how terrifying Duke Ming's profound strength truly was. Before, he was the third strongest person in the entire illusory demon realm, behind the Demon Emperor and the Demon King. However, now that both the Demon Emperor and the Demon King had passed away, he had become the undisputed #1 within the illusory demon realm. In 150 years, his strength had obviously grown tremendously. Under the effect of his profound energy, even at the little demon empress's level, her body felt coldly frozen, and her chest felt a suffocating pressure. While the little demon empress had her own thoughts about the situation, Renzu moved in a way that completely hid her behind him. He raised his chin and stared at the two men fearlessly, spitting a stream of blood onto the ground before speaking in an indifferent, almost lazy tone. Humph. Interesting. Two dead men talking so loudly, and still daring to raise a hand against Sai. His voice echoed through the valley like unexpected thunder. The smile on Duke Huai's face froze for a moment before twisting into mockery. He laughed loudly, the sound harsh and arrogant, filling the air. Dead? Ha 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 ha. And who are you, insolent brat, to dare say such words before us? You were lucky to barely survive my earlier attack. If it had hit your heart, you'd already be a corpse. Well, isn't that obvious? When you hit someone's heart, they die. Do you need to make this ridiculous show to say your attack was strong and all that? That's pretty hilarious. I wonder what people would say if they knew the renowned Duke Huai attacked a fragile woman by surprise and still boasted about his attack. Not to mention Duke Ming himself, who accompanied him. Duke Huai gave a disdainful snort, and was about to step forward to say something when his face suddenly froze. Because, when Renzu spoke just now, he had clearly mentioned those two words, Duke Ming. What was going on? How could he know the name Duke Ming? Even the people in the Demon Imperial City hadn't seen him for over 100 years, and his existence had practically been forgotten? Who was this boy, really? They had received information that the little demon empress had suffered an accident while cultivating and was living as a mortal in the Great Zhou Mountain alongside an unknown man. After verifying and being certain, they wanted to seize this opportunity and didn't investigate the boy thoroughly. For a moment, astonishment crossed the little demon empress's face. Oh! Duke Ming's eyes instantly narrowed into two long slits, and the gaze from those slits rested unfailingly on Renzu's eyes. Interesting, you actually recognize this Duke. Of course I would recognize you, Renzu said as he crossed his arms over his chest. Facing this terrifying figure, whose strength dominated the illusory demon realm and who could cover the sky with one hand, whose intellect and cunning were deep and unfathomable, he didn't seem the least bit nervous. Instead, he smiled cheerfully and replied, Not only do I know you're Duke Ming, I also know that it was you who conspired with the Divine Sword Power region 100 years ago to kill the former Demon Emperor, and it was also you who personally killed the little Demon Emperor. Renzu's words were, without a doubt, shocking and terrifying. The little Demon Empress's entire body trembled dramatically, and she raised her head fiercely, and suddenly she seemed to slip into a daze for a moment. While Duke Huai didn't have time to hide the look of pure astonishment that appeared in his eyes. Even Duke Ming, who had been staring directly at Renzu the entire time, had a whirlwind in his eyes for a moment. On the other hand, Renzu turned his gaze to the two men who had appeared exactly as he had planned during the week he spent by the little demon empress's side. It was all a carefully staged act. He intended to eliminate both of them and, at the same time, win Sai's heart. Naturally, he had taken care not to leave any evidence that could expose him. The man before his eyes was someone at the 10th level of the sovereign profound realm. In this world where the profound gods were merely a mythological existence, the 10th level of the sovereign profound realm was the pinnacle of all profound practitioners. Whether in the profound sky continent or the illusory demon realm, these beings were true monarchs who looked down on everything beneath the heavens and could not be surpassed. An existence that humans would call a god. But he wasn't worried. After reaching the heavenly profound realm and also achieving the 8 inner gates in physical terms, he was confident he could kill him with a single punch. As for the earlier injury, well, he let it happen to test his body's regeneration and begin his theatrical performance. Now he was truly looking like a villain, plotting so deeply just to achieve his goals. Why did that feel so good? What did you say? The little demon empress's tone was deep and rigid, revealing an incredible violent confusion. Oh! Duke Ming raised his eyes, looked at Renzu with some interest and said, This Duke doesn't seem to understand what you're saying very well. Hee hee. Renzu's face revealed disdain, and his eyes even showed obvious mockery and scorn. It was just a guess, but you just confirmed it for me. Judging by the fact that you want to take advantage of Tsai's situation to kill her, I can tell that you, Duke Ming, have the ambition to take over the world. From what I've heard about you, you have unmatched profound strength, a calculating mind that even ghosts and gods cannot predict, and a heart 10,000 times more wicked than snakes and scorpions. I originally thought you were a formidable person who couldn't be more qualified, but what a pity. Seeing you today, it seems you're just a chicken who dares to act but not to confess. That really disappoints me. You're courting death? Du Kuai instantly became furious and abruptly extended his hand, wanting to grab toward Renzu. This was the first time in his entire life that he saw someone actually insult his own father. However, Duke Ming extended his hand and stopped Du Kuai. Then he raised his head and laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha. You're an intriguing young man. At the end of his words, he narrowed his eyes once again. The light coming from his narrow, long pupils was even more terrifying than that of a venomous snake. However, there are very few things in this world that interest this Duke, and very few things I want to know the answer to that are regrettable. So this Duke will grant you more time to live. Here, tell this Duke. What else do you know? The words Duke Ming said were not a question but rather an implicit confession. The little demon empress's breathing was completely disordered, and her eyes shone with a horrifying hatred from the purgatory of hell. Renzu scoffed softly and said unhurriedly, "Before, the profound sky continent suddenly invaded the illusory demon realm. It was because of you. You used some method to let the 4 great sacred grounds of the profound sky continent know about the existence of the samsara mirror of the illusory demon realm, which was treasured as a sacred artifact by the demon emperor, and fabricated that the samsara mirror had some divine powers, sparking their ambition and making the people of the profound sky continent, with all their resources, invade the illusory demon realm just to capture the samsara mirror, and the reason they were able to invade again and retreat unscathed was because you were their insider." He pointed at Du Kuai and said coldly, "And the reason you did what you did was to replace the demon emperor and become the ruler of the illusory demon realm. The reason the former demon emperor would personally pursue to the profound sky continent was absolutely not because of anger and recklessness. He must have fallen into your trap. The death of the little demon emperor. It wasn't because he acted rashly after drinking too much and forcibly infiltrated the profound sky continent. But he died at your hands, Duke Ming. You'll deny these things?" Almost every sentence Renzu said made Duke Huai's face change each time. Deep down, his eyes were filled with shock. He thought that the things he had said in the entire world were secrets that only they, father and son, knew, and it was absolutely impossible for a third person to know. Even those people in the profound sky continent didn't know the identity of their insider from that time. Clap, 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 clap. Ha 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 ha. Duke Ming laughed coldly and clapped his hands, his eyes without any fluctuations. "Brilliant. You are truly brilliant. This Duke will generously admit what you said is absolutely correct. The reason those sacred grounds of the profound sky continent invaded the illusory demon realm was because of this Duke. This Duke merely told them at that time that the samsara mirror of the illusory demon realm, which was guarded by the demon emperor, contained a profound divine mystery. If they could break the secret of the samsara mirror, then they could break the limit of the sovereign profound realm, step into the divine profound realm, and become the legendary profound god. Those people were even more greedy and foolish than this Duke expected. They not only believed it, but a year later, they could no longer wait and were preparing to step into the illusory demon realm. This Duke naturally was happy to help them build the spatial tunnel and tell them what this Duke wanted them to know. Those people from the profound sky continent truly didn't disappoint this Duke. They left the demon imperial city in complete chaos and made the death of the demon emperor and the little demon emperor go even more perfectly than this Duke planned. Duke Ming laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha. What profound sky sacred grounds, they were just chess pieces that this Duke used and played with in the palm of my hand. As for that demon emperor and little demon emperor, in the hands of this Duke, they were just 2 pitiful little insects. This Duke merely used a small trick and easily led the demon emperor to where the spatial tunnel was. Of course, no matter how foolish he wouldn't recklessly chase into the spatial tunnel and commit suicide in the profound sky continent's territory. It was this Duke's timely appearance that helped him. Princess Tsai, your pitiful father was truly surprised when he saw this Duke's appearance. Even when this Duke approached to a distance of only 2 steps from him, he didn't have any guard up and was lightly kicked by this Duke into the spatial tunnel. Little Demon Empress. On the other side of the spatial tunnel, the Heavenly Power Soul Suppression Formation was waiting for him. As soon as he entered the Heavenly Power Soul Suppression Formation, even if he had the strongest profound strength, he wouldn't be able to use it. Duke Ming laughed lightly, his expression of vast arrogance as if everything in the world couldn't escape his control. As for the little demon emperor who had just ascended the throne, it was even easier. On the night of his grand wedding, he was just like you today. He generously gave this duke an absolutely great opportunity. He truly went to commemorate the former demon emperor alone. But this duke didn't kill him. I merely crippled him and threw him into the spatial tunnel leading to the profound sky continent. That way, there wouldn't be a trace of this duke left behind. This duke only randomly left some last words for him. The next day, the entire illusory demon realm knew that the little demon emperor, who had just ascended the throne, acted rashly after drinking too much on his wedding night with the little demon empress and invaded the profound sky continent alone. Compared to the sorrow for the little demon emperor's death, there must be even more people cursing his stupidity. Ha 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 ha. Duke Ming! The little demon empress was furious, her small body trembling incomparably violently. Renzu, who was closest to her, could clearly feel that her anger, hatred, and murderous intent were exploding so strongly that they almost tore through space completely. He glanced sideways at the little demon empress and found that her face was still pale as a sheet of white paper, and at the corner of her mouth, there was bright red blood slowly dripping. She hadn't been injured when Duke Huai attacked them by surprise. That trace of blood was from an internal injury caused by anger and hatred that was too intense. Until today, she didn't know that the culprit for her father and brother's deaths wasn't the profound sky continent, but Duke Ming right in front of her. He killed the two people closest to her, caused the extinction of the Demon Emperor clan's bloodline, caused chaos in the Demon Imperial City, and even harmed the entire illusory demon realm. He could imagine how strong that hatred and murderous intent must be, but even so, she was able to strictly maintain her rationality and didn't let go of everything under the influence of bone-piercing hatred to attack Duke Ming. Because not only was it impossible to kill Duke Ming, whose ability was terrifyingly incredible, especially with her cultivation sealed, but she and Renzu would only die even sooner. At this moment, in this second, she had to seize every breath of a chance to survive, so there would be a possibility of her taking revenge in the future. Duke Ming shifted his eyes, then narrowed them and savored the little demon empress's expression at this moment. Yes, savored. That hatred that so strongly wished to burn their bones to ashes, that hatred that so strongly wished to tear him to pieces, made him savor and gave him pleasure. Knowing the truth and still able to refrain from attacking this duke, you are indeed Princess Tsai. It was worth this duke not seizing the perfect chance to kill you for these 100 years. You should thank this duke graciously for letting you know who destroyed your clan before you die. Oh, by the way, do you know, back then, when the little demon emperor clearly saw this duke's face, how remarkable his expression was. Tisk tisk, it was so remarkable that even now, when this duke thinks about it, it gives me endless aftertaste. Duke Ming. The little demon empress's voice was so hoarse and deep that it didn't even sound like a human voice. The two short words were as cold as if they came from purgatory, but they couldn't compare to a 10,000th of the hatred in her heart. Runzu looked at him and said lazily, Duke Ming, your clan was able to be a royal clan. That was all because of the Demon Emperor clan. Not only were you not grateful and failed to serve loyally, but you grew your own ambitions and were cruel to this extent. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning for your sins? Such childish words. Duke Ming laughed lightly. The Emperor of the world naturally must be someone with ability. From the moment this duke was born, I was destined to be the one who rules the people under the heavens. The people who stand in this duke's way, no matter who they are, this duke will do anything to get rid of them. That so-called loyalty and righteousness are things that belong to ridiculous weaklings. What you wanted this duke to confess, this duke has already confessed everything. Now, tell this duke about this duke's information. How did you find out? Duke Ming looked directly at Renzu, the gaze from his eyes like two sharp blades that almost pierced through his heart and soul. As Duke Ming continued, this duke thought that no matter what I did, I wouldn't leave any trace. For the past century, the entire illusory demon realm never had anyone suspect this duke. How did you, little boy, find out about this? Could it be that this duke made any mistakes along the way? I calculated it with my fingers, Renzu said slowly. While Duke Huai was puzzled by this response and the little demon empress was too focused on the hatred in her heart, Duke Ming was obviously not satisfied with this answer. But he didn't continue to ask. Instead, he sneered, and his eyes, which already revealed a dangerous light, immediately became even colder. I guess, huh? This duke will believe your answer for now. Next, how will you save Princess Tsai's life and your own in front of this duke? I'm curious to know how you'll do that. You said you wouldn't let anything happen to her, right? So, the duke believes he is capable of killing both of us? I don't see any danger in facing a mere 10th level sovereign profound realm. It's not enough to reach the apex, Renzu said calmly. You! Before Duke Huai could rebuke the boy, his father clapped his hands again. Clap, clap, clap. Ha 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 ha. Not enough to reach the apex. This is the first time this duke has met someone so arrogant. Even more arrogant than this duke. So this duke is curious, why do you think you could escape from the palm of this duke's hand? Duke Ming asked with a smile. His calm but dangerous expression was as if he were telling Renzu that although he had some great tricks, it was absolutely impossible for him to escape from him. A/N. Also, if you want to read up to 10 advanced chapters of the story and support the project, check out my Patreon. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next chapter. 19. Chapter 19, Duke's Proposal. Renzu smiled calmly, as if Duke Ming's words were a gentle breeze without any weight. His lips curved into a lazy arc, and he responded in a tone devoid of any hurry. Escape? Who said I want to escape? Humph. You talk as if the palm of your hand were the heavens themselves. To me, it's nothing more than a speck of dust in my path. It won't be a problem. Renzu's relaxed gaze, paired with that almost bored smile, made the atmosphere in the valley grow even stranger. The little demon empress's body trembled slightly behind him. Even she, who was well acquainted with Renzu's arrogance, felt her heart shake at the absurd calm he displayed before the most feared man in the entire illusory demon realm. You're courting death. Duke Huai took a step forward, rage burning in his eyes. He turned to his father and spoke with a voice laden with hatred. Father, it's not worth dirtying your hands with this insolent brat. Let me crush this fool with my own hands. I'll show him the difference between a worm and a dragon. He unleashed a wave of profound energy that made the ground tremble. Dust rose around him, and the pressure of his power shattered nearby trees like dry twigs. His killing intent was so dense it seemed to condense the very air. Duke Ming, however, didn't respond immediately. His long, narrow eyes fixed on Renzu with even greater interest, like a predator observing a rare animal. A cold smile appeared on his lips, and then he said in a low tone, "Teach this boy the price of arrogance. But don't kill him yet. I want to see how long that smile stays on his face." "Yes, father." Duke Huai roared, the energy in his body surging like a hurricane. He raised his right hand, and a massive palm of condensed profound energy appeared above Renzu, carrying the force of a collapsing mountain. The entire valley seemed to crumble under that suffocating pressure. Yet, Renzu merely raised his eyes, and the lazy smile on his face didn't falter for a moment. "Well, since you insist on entertaining me, I'll play with you too." Renzu slowly raised his fist, each movement simple, almost relaxed, but the entire world reacted as if it were about to collapse. In the next instant, the sky roared. Black clouds gathered over the valley, and crimson lightning bolts descended in furious torrents, illuminating everything with an apocalyptic light. Crack, crack, lightning danced across the valley. Profound art of the Thunder King. 9 stars, first stage. Fist of the Thunder King of world collapsing star. He struck with force toward the condensed palm of profound energy descending upon him. A deafening thunderclap exploded in the air as the blow was delivered. The condensed energy manifested as a colossal projection of a fist made of red lightning, so massive it seemed to crush the very horizon. Lightning bolts slithered around like frenzied dragons, roaring with primal fury. The pressure unleashed was so absurd that space itself distorted, shattering into black fissures that spread like webs of cracked glass. Compared to that force, Duke Huai's crushing attack was mere sand before a raging ocean. The profound energy palm descending like a mountain was instantly swallowed and destroyed, torn to pieces like paper in a storm. "Impossible!" Duke Huai shouted, his eyes wide with disbelief. But before he could react, a shadow appeared before his eyes. Renzu had simply vanished from where he stood, his speed tearing through the laws of space. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Duke Huai, his fist extending in a perfect punch. The punch struck his stomach with a force so close to the speed of light that the impact violently distorted the space at that point. The sound of breaking bones mingled with the roar of thunder. "Gahafa!" Duke Huai spat a torrent of blood, his body crumpling as if made of soft clay. The point of impact deformed as his organs were obliterated. In a last-second attempt, he tried to mobilize his profound energy to mitigate the attack, only to discover his cultivation had been sealed. His eyes widened further. His body was hurled like a lifeless projectile, soaring through the air with a trail of blood and residual lightning. He crashed into the mountain range, and the impact caused the entire ridge to collapse as if made of sand. When the dust settled, the once proud Duke Huai was kneeling amid the rubble, his face pale, his eyes bulging with pain and disbelief. Each breath seemed to tear his lungs. His stomach was so distorted from the blow that even the surrounding space still trembled, unable to return to normal. A steady stream of blood dripped from his mouth, staining the ground a vivid red. Impossible. I'm a duke. How could I? Meanwhile, Renzu reappeared in front of the little demon empress, who was stunned by how easily he had defeated Duke Huai. Even at her peak, she would have struggled to face him, as although her power surpassed Duke Huai's, she could never let her guard down. Renzu had done it so effortlessly? Was he truly stronger than her by a significant margin? Ha 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 ha. Seeing his son defeated, Duke Ming laughed recklessly once more as he slowly stepped forward. I see, this duke is impressed. This duke never thought he'd encounter such a talented youth. If I'm not mistaken, you're already a monarch, aren't you? Someone at the early or mid-level capable of fighting above your level against my foolish son. 100 years ago, it's true that this duke might have lost to a monster like you. But now, this duke is no longer at the 9th level of the sovereign profound realm as I was 100 years ago. I am at the 10th level of the sovereign profound realm, the pinnacle realm in this world. At this level, the palms of this duke can already touch the laws of this world. Even this space under my palm could, in an instant, be shattered. So what? As I said before, it's not enough to reach the apex, Renzu said calmly. With a subtle motion of his hand, he positioned himself protectively in front of Tsai, extending an arm behind him in a silent but clear gesture. Don't move. The little demon empress, her fists clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms, glared at him with hatred and helplessness. Her heart burned with fury against the two men who had appeared, but the fear of losing Renzu, who had gotten into this mess because of her, burned even stronger. A whirlwind of conflicting emotions tore her apart inside. Concern, anger, hatred, helplessness, until the last emotion surged with brutal intensity. A hatred so profound it seemed to want to destroy the entire world. Naturally, all that hatred was directed at Duke Ming standing before her. After hearing Renzu's words, Duke Ming's eyebrows relaxed slightly, and the corner of his mouth lifted a bit. His expressionless face turned into a carefree, gentle smile. Boy, honestly, this duke would hate to kill you. You possess an extraordinary technique, you're clever, and your potential is even more astonishing. Under this duke's gaze, you haven't even panicked, which means your mental strength is also remarkable. You dare to harm my son. Your courage and audacity are even more exceptional. At your age, with this kind of ability, even this duke can't help but be impressed. If you die like this, it would be a waste. So, Renzu narrowed his eyes. Is Duke Ming prepared to give me a chance to live? Let this duke plant a soul mark on your body, and from now on, be loyal to this duke. Not only will you live, but when this duke rules the world, you can enjoy wealth and honor for the rest of your life. Duke Ming said softly. This duke has never hesitated or softened when it comes to killing someone. You are the first. This is the highest grace this duke is offering you. Don't disappoint this duke. Grace? Heh. Renzu scoffed deeply. Your so-called grace isn't worth a penny to me. Even if I die, I won't let someone like you, who can't even compare to a beast, taint my soul. Very well, Duke Ming nodded slowly in his heart. Since you've chosen stupidity, then, die. The space warped as Duke Ming slowly raised his hand. An overwhelming pressure engulfed the entire valley. The ground creaked. The air fragmented into black fissures. And then, a gigantic palm of golden fire appeared above the sky. It was so vast it obscured the horizon, each finger like a flaming mountain, each strand of fire a golden river of destruction. The heat it released made the entire Zhou Great Mountain range tremble, as if it were wax melting before a volcano. If that palm descended fully, not only the Zhou Great Mountain but the entire surrounding region would be reduced to ashes in a single instant. Shattered heaven golden sun palm, Duke Ming said casually, as if he had already decreed the end of Renzu and the little demon empress. Under this utterly terrifying power, even a normal monarch, let alone an ordinary person, would be easily crushed to pieces. The little demon empress's heart stopped for a moment. The aura of that technique overwhelmed her like an endless ocean. With her cultivation sealed, if not for Renzu shielding her by standing in front, she would have turned to ashes, but before the world was consumed by fire, Renzu had already moved. With a step as swift as thunder, he grabbed her by the waist, lifting her into his arms as if it were natural, and retreated in an arc that defied the imminent destruction. Hold on to me. In the next instant, Renzu's body erupted in crimson lightning. He gritted his teeth, circulating all his profound energy without reservation, activating the second form of his profound lightning art. His eyes shone like collapsing stars, sealing the nebula, locking the stars. He murmured softly. A thunderous roar reverberated through the valley. From Renzu's body expanded a spherical barrier of blood-red lightning, like a divine cocoon made of pure stellar power. The lightning currents intertwined like flaming dragons, forming stars that spun endlessly. Within it, time seemed to slow, and even the sound of external destruction became muffled, as if they were isolated in an untouchable bubble. Sai looked around, her breathing shaky, her eyes reflecting the wall of thunder surrounding them. She could feel he was pouring everything into this attack. Did that mean even he wasn't a match for Duke Ming? Her heart pounded faster with dread. The impact came. The palm that seemed like a golden sun collided with the blood-red barrier. Boom! The barrier trembled violently, each layer of thunder roaring against the golden fire trying to tear it apart. Red lightning and golden flames exploded in waves of energy that shattered entire mountains, vaporizing rivers and forests. The valley that had existed until that moment simply ceased to be, replaced by a massive crater filled with dust and flying debris. Inside the barrier, Renzu gritted his teeth fiercely, his muscles tensing, veins bulging on his skin, and blood beginning to trickle from the corners of his eyes and mouth. Yet, his arms remained firm around Sai, protecting her as if nothing else mattered. He quickly glanced at her in his arms, their eyes meeting as he held her delicate body even tighter. Sai, don't worry, everything will be fine. I'll use the rest of my strength to get us out. Hold on tight. He took a deep breath and immediately activated his ancestral spatial symbol to teleport. He pressed Sai against his chest, vanishing from the collapsing crater. Boom! The golden palm exploded against the spot where they had been, completely annihilating the region. Entire mountains turned to dust, rivers to vapor, and everything within miles was wiped out. In the center of that apocalyptic destruction, a single golden shadow remained suspended. It was Duke Ming, his hair whipped by chaotic energy, coldly staring at the colossal crater he had created. His expression was calm, but his eyes held a trace of even denser killing intent than before. With a gesture of his hand, his son appeared, held by the collar of his robes. Still injured and unable to use his profound energy, Duke Huai quickly asked, "Royal Father, what happened? How did they disappear? Could they have—" Heh! Duke Ming retracted his other hand unhurriedly. There wasn't a trace of panic or a disturbed expression on his face. Not even one of surprise. It seemed this was also within his expectations. Due to that boy's profound art, I couldn't quite see what happened. But if I had to guess, it was merely the activation of the Crimson Blood Bracelet, triggering a dimensional escape. Such a thing exists in the Little Demon Emperor's memory, and it was just as this Duke expected, that the Little Demon Empress equipped it. It's merely a futile effort before their death. How could they escape the palms of this Duke? Duke Ming said as he slightly turned his body, narrowing his eyes and smiling. His gaze locked directly northwest. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly in a gentle, breezy smile, but the light in his pupils was colder and more piercing than the most venomous snake. It seems they've entered the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley. Low-level profound practitioners used spatial rings as storage devices, but once reaching the monarch level, one could open a personal dimensional pocket. Important items could be stored in this pocket to prevent them from being easily lost or stolen, as with items in a spatial ring. Stealing something from someone's dimensional pocket was far harder than killing them. If someone did kill that person, their dimensional pocket would also collapse, and the items within would be shredded by spatial energies or fall into dimensional rifts. Either way, those items would never reappear. But most importantly, as someone who had reached the highest level of the Sovereign Profound Realm, he could touch the world's space and sense the teleportation's location through it. That's why he didn't immediately pursue them to stop their escape. Duke Huai was still gasping in pain, his face pale, but his eyes gleamed with a spark of dark hope upon hearing his father's words. Then, they've entered the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley, he murmured, his breathing heavy, but soon a twisted smile appeared on his bloodied lips. Royal Father, doesn't this ruin our plans? We wanted to kill Tsai to seize this opportunity. Now that they've escaped, won't this complicate things for us? Duke Ming raised a hand behind his back, his narrow eyes glinting like cold blades. He replied calmly, without even glancing at his son. No. Even if they've escaped this Duke and entered a place not easily accessible, they won't be able to leave for many years. The Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley isn't a place people can freely traverse. It's an independent world. The Little Demon Empress and that boy, will be trapped there for a while, and by then all our plans will already be complete. When they finally emerge, if they're still alive, the throne will already have a new owner. Duke Huai's eyes shone with sick excitement, but suddenly his expression twisted in agony. He clutched his stomach, his trembling fingers shaking violently. Arg! He groaned, hatred bubbling in his eyes. Damn! That brat! It was his attack. Since then, my cultivation, it's sealed. I can't mobilize any profound energy. Duke Ming's pupils narrowed for a moment, but soon a peculiar glint of interest appeared in his gaze. Sealed? That boy actually applied a sealing technique with his attack. Humph. Very interesting. The corner of Duke Ming's mouth curled into a... This boy is even more troublesome than I imagined. Not only does he carry an unusual bloodline and absurd techniques, but he also possesses means that even this Duke cannot immediately identify. He laughed softly, but the coldness emanating from his eyes was so suffocating that even Duke Huai shuddered, despite the hatred burning in his chest. Royal father, I swear. The next time we meet that wretch, I'll tear his skin off piece by piece. Duke Ming didn't respond immediately. Instead, he slightly tilted his face, staring toward the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley. A chilling glint flashed through his eyes. Perhaps, this Duke is cultivating a truly worthy enemy. A/N. Also, if you want to read up to 10 advanced chapters of the story and support the project, check out my Patreon. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next chapter. 20. Chapter 20 Golden Crow. The entrance to the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley was established where the two towering peaks intersected. Within a 50-kilometer radius, there were no signs of humans, and only a few profound beasts were seen. The seal at the entrance of the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley was personally set by the soul of the Golden Crow. The profound formation stood 30 meters tall, constantly emitting a deep golden glow and a scorching aura. In the darkness of the night, even from several kilometers away, the golden radiance of the profound formation would be exceptionally striking. Though it was currently morning, it was still clearly visible from a great distance. As one approached the site, they could distinctly feel the surrounding air growing hotter and hotter, and at half a kilometer away, the searing heat became unbearable for any ordinary human. Within the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley, a world of scarlet fire and purple lightning reigned in utter chaos. The outside world was completely shrouded in the inky black curtain of night, but here, there wasn't a trace of darkness. Wherever one looked, furious volcanoes and boiling lava dominated the landscape. These volcanoes were tightly clustered, and though their heights varied greatly, each burned with vibrant red flames. Some stood as tall as 3,000 meters, resembling great fire demons setting the sky ablaze. The ground was so hot it glowed red, and every grain of sand radiated astonishing heat. If an ordinary person came here, they would be reduced to ashes in mere breaths. Yet, the sky was a deep purple, with storm clouds howling like enraged malevolent gods, and from time to time, the ground was struck by lightning that shook both heaven and earth. Boom! A lightning bolt several dozen meters thick exploded, splitting a volcano in two in an instant. Countless volcanic rocks and magma flew through the air. This scene, which would terrify anyone who witnessed it, was, instead, entirely common here. A large number of fire and lightning spirits roamed and danced through this world. Though most were only as large as a palm, they radiated the aura of the profound heaven realm, and some even carried the aura of the profound emperor realm. Occasionally, a high-grade spirit would appear, truly emanating the aura of the profound tyrant realm. If someone could subdue and refine these fire and lightning spirits, they could directly convert them into their own profound energy. Refining a single low-grade emperor fire spirit was equivalent to the results of many years of arduous cultivation for an ordinary profound emperor realm practitioner. For these spirits to be born, extremely stringent conditions had to be met. They could only emerge in environments where an element was extraordinarily active and pure, such as the heart of a glacier or the depths of a lava lake. And even then, the chance of a spirit appearing was extremely low. Thus, even a low-grade elemental spirit could fetch an astronomical fortune. But in the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley, they appeared in groups, in droves. No wonder the power levels of those living in the Demon Imperial City were so astonishing. It was no surprise that, after the Yun family had been barred from entering the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley for 100 years, their strength had weakened to a shocking degree. Deep within the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley, on a small hill, stood a Golden Crow profound formation strikingly similar to the one sealing the valley, except this one was a third smaller, and the silhouette of the Golden Crow was more vivid. This was the end of the Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley, the place where the Golden Crow's ancestral land lay. There was only a mountain wall behind this sealing profound formation. It was evident that the Golden Crow's ancestral land was another independent world, perhaps even the small world of the Golden Crow's soul itself. This blazing profound formation was merely a teleportation entrance. Within the Golden Crow's ancestral land, the only word to describe it was golden. The horizon didn't exist. Only an endless golden expanse shimmering with the intensity of 1,000 fused suns. Every detail was bathed in liquid gold, the ground appearing to be made of fine sand but sparkling as if each grain were a fragment of pure light. There was no sky, no clouds, only absolute gold permeating everything. as if time itself had been transformed into solid light. In the golden silence of this independent world, two silhouettes suddenly appeared out of nowhere, tearing through the expanse as if space itself had ripped open to reveal them. They were Renzu and the little demon empress, who had fled from Duke Ming. But their moment of relief was brief. Renzu immediately paled, his expression marked by the extreme effort he had exerted to escape Duke Ming's attack. His body faltered, his knees touched the golden ground, and before he could catch his breath, he collapsed unconscious. A trickle of blood ran from his lips. Sai stepped back slightly, pressed by him as she had been carried in his arms like a princess earlier, her face flushed with both concern and a mix of shame for feeling unable to help him. Her heart raced, a flame of hatred and despair burning within. Without a word, she quickly knelt beside him, her delicate hands running over his arms and chest, checking if he was still breathing, if there was any sign of life. "Renzu, stay with me, please," she murmured, her voice trembling, her solitary black eyes gleaming with cold determination. You can't just pass out like this." She quickly realized there were no serious external injuries, only a slight bleeding from his lips. Everything indicated he had completely exhausted his profound energy, drained by the effort of facing Duke Ming's golden palm and protecting her. The weight of the situation made her shudder, but her hatred for the men who had attacked them burned even stronger. The little demon empress carefully wrapped her arms around Renzu's shoulders, gently pressing him against her to stabilize him. Though it was only extreme exhaustion, she couldn't simply ignore it. Her anger mingled with a protective desperation, and for a moment, the entire golden world around them seemed to vanish, leaving only her and him at the center of her attention. "I won't let anything happen to you, Renzu," she said, her voice laced with resolve and emotion, tears threatening to spill but held back by determination. "Not even Duke Ming. Not even the entire world. No one will touch you while I'm here." The golden silence of the Golden Crow's ancestral land enveloped them, but to Tsai, it felt as suffocating as any battlefield. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heartbeat, as anger and concern intertwined, forming a silent force ready to protect Renzu at any cost. The little demon empress took another deep breath. In the next instant, she felt an intense, vibrant, undeniable surge within her body. Her profound energy, which had been suppressed and weakened by Renzu's attack a week ago, now returned like a raging river, her power at its peak. But relief didn't come. Her fingers trembled slightly as they gripped Renzu's shoulder. Even with her strength restored, even with her body brimming with power again, the sight of him lying fragile and unconscious made her chest ache painfully. The return of her energy didn't erase the image of the young man who had protected her at the cost of his own life, but it was enough to awaken the one who dwelled in the depths of the Golden Crow's ancestral land. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, a woman's laughter echoed through the golden world. It was a paradoxical sound, loud as if it came from the heavens themselves, yet so close it seemed to whisper in her ear. Though the little demon empress's profound strength had reached the 5th level of the sovereign profound realm, her vital energy and even her blood quivered under the weight of that laughter. Interesting. Truly interesting. This noble one never thought she'd see a descendant in this state. Curious boy. Did he tear through space with some treasure to get here? No, a world piercer? Impossible. It must have been something else. But more importantly, the illusory demon royal family has been delayed for 100 years. And today someone finally arrives. But it's just a woman. It seems this noble one's fate with your clan has come to an end. The little demon empress's eyes widened upon hearing that voice and its words. In an instant, she understood where she was, and the revelation made her heart tremble even more. That place, in the past, all she had felt toward it was powerlessness and an impossible desire to reach it, due to the absence of the demon emperor's seal. But thanks to him, she had reached this place. Though she had restrained herself with all her strength, the most intense agitation in the last 100 years flickered in her eyes, because to her, being in this place meant her Golden Crow bloodline could truly awaken, granting an immense leap in her strength, from her current monarch level to the peak of monarch. In the illusory demon realm, no one would be her match anymore. With Duke Ming returning as a peak-level monarch, this was, without a doubt, a heavenly surprise. It would completely change her fate, allowing her to become the true ruler of the illusory demon realm and exact her revenge. Setting Renzu on the ground somewhat roughly due to her excitement, she quickly knelt on one knee and said with great respect, "12th Emperor of the illusory demon royal family, 11th inheritor of the Golden Crow bloodline, Huan Sai, greets the divine Golden Crow. Why have you come here?" In that instant, a pair of golden scarlet eyes suddenly opened in the deep golden sky, casting a fiery glow. "Divine Golden Crow, I am a descendant of the Golden Crow Demon Emperor clan, but traitors have schemed against me. and now I am the last one left. This vengeance and hatred are absolutely irreconcilable. Though I am a woman, I am the only direct descendant of the Demon Emperor's bloodline, and I have inherited the pure Demon Emperor's blood. I beseech the divine Golden Crow to grant me the Golden Crow's record of the burning world and the ancestral bloodline to revive the Demon Emperor clan. Grant you the Golden Crow's record of the burning world and the ancestral bloodline? Ha 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 ha. You are truly pitiful and naive. Did you not hear what I just said? The moment you entered here, I knew my fate with your clan was over. What do you mean by that, divine Golden Crow? The little demon empress furrowed her brows, speaking in confusion. What does it mean? You are utterly naive. The Demon Emperor clan has had 10 generations of demon emperors over the past 10,000 years, and all 10 were men. There has never been a woman. Did you really think it was just a simple coincidence of men being superior to women? Humph, it seems you don't know that. With a mortal body like yours, only men can withstand carrying the Golden Crow's ancestral blood. The little demon empress felt as though she had been struck by lightning. Her entire body trembled slightly as she said, "Why? Even though I am a woman, my heritage is directly from the Demon Emperor clan. It doesn't matter if you're a descendant of the Demon Emperor clan. It's simply because you are a woman," the fiery voice said mercilessly. "Men's bodies are yang, and women's bodies are yin. With a mortal woman's body, you can tolerate controlling ordinary profound flames. Even the phoenix flames or vermilion bird flames would be fine. But my golden crow flame is the fiercest yang fire in the world. Cannot tolerate any trace of yin. You currently possess only a faint trace of the golden crow bloodline, and you're already suffering from its burning day and night. You're in pain and your lifespan has been greatly reduced. If you were to carry the ancestral bloodline, your internal blood flow would be completely disrupted, and you would suffer in agony for your entire life. Moreover, you are still a virgin, so your vital yin remains in your body. If you accept the ancestral blood, within 3 days, the flame energy of your bloodline would erupt, and you would die in flames within 5 days. Little demon empress. It was true that the 10 generations of emperors in the illusory demon realm were all men, but no one thought this was strange, as having a male emperor was always considered normal. In contrast, a female emperor was abnormal. Everyone in the illusory demon royal family knew that the Golden Crow bloodline harmed women's bodies, especially the demon emperor's empress, who carried the direct bloodline. The empress always died before the demon emperor, and none lived beyond 1,000 years, without exception. The little demon empress naturally knew all this, but she absolutely hadn't considered that, as a woman, even as a woman of the demon emperor's bloodline, she couldn't withstand the ancestral blood, nor could she cultivate the Golden Crow's record of the burning world. All her renewed hopes were torn away, as if icy water from a frozen spring had been mercilessly poured over her heart and soul. She stood stunned for a long time, thinking about the current state of the Demon Emperor clan, and murmured without giving up, "Could it be? There's truly no possibility? Divine Golden Crow, you too have a female body." Ha 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 ha. The fiery voice laughed insolently. "How can a divine body be compared to your mortal one? A possibility, humph, it's not as if there isn't one. But it would mean receiving the nourishment of vital yang from a man who possesses the phoenix or vermilion bird bloodline." When the Golden Crow mentioned phoenix and vermilion bird, there was an unmistakable tone of deep disdain. The little demon empress remained kneeling, unable to move or speak for a long time, as if her soul had been lost upon hearing the divine Golden Crow's words. Just as she was about to say something, she was interrupted. "But not all is lost. Fortunately, you are lucky. Little Demon Empress. /N. Sparkles Extra Chapter Goals Sparkles. Fanfic novels for every 5 5-star reviews plus 1 extra chapter released. Gemstone for every 100 Power Stones plus 1 extra chapter released. The more support you give, the faster new chapters will arrive. Rocket Fire. Also, if you want to read up to 10 advanced chapters of the story and support the project, check out my Patreon. My Patreon. Patreon.com/fanficnovels. Fanfic novels for $5.99. You get full access to all content, no holding back. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next chapter.
Every novel listed in the description comes with permanent access to the audiobook on Telegram. You pay once, and if the novel is still ongoing, you'll receive all future updates automatically. No extra cost. Choose your novel from the description, then DM me on Telegram, WhatsApp, or Discord. After payment via PayPal, Ko-Fi, or Patreon, you'll get instant access. Simple, secure, lifetime listening. Guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Your support means a lot.